Is anybody in the back standing? Would you like us to pull out some chairs here? Are we good? We're okay? Okay. So I'm calling the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. This is the regular meeting of the Kaneland Board of Education. We'd like to inform all board meeting attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. And if you'll please rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Guys, make sure your mics are towards you. Some of them are off. Oh, mine was off. Okay. And a roll call, please. Toward you. Yeah. Thank you.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mrs. Junk.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons. Here. Dr. Lawler is absent.
With 6 members present, we have a quorum. And do any board members wish to move anything from the consent agenda to new business? Here. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. And a roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mrs. Junk, sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons. Aye. Mrs. Witt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Move on now to the board and superintendent salutes. Dr. Hayden.
Thank you.
We have two groups that we are saluting tonight, and I think that's part of our wonderful audience, and then the Art Awards in J1. So it is great to see all of you. Thank you for coming out tonight to recognize our administrators, staff, and students. The first thing I would like to note and salute not our high school, but all of our district principals. I would say principals, would you stand? You kind of blend in, but our principals, can you wave? We don't have 30 principals, trust me on that. So those are our district principals. The National Association of School Administrators designate October as National Principal Appreciation Month, and the Illinois Principals Association designates the third week of October each month, the 16th to the 22nd, with Friday, the 21st of October being Illinois Principal Appreciation Day. So with that, I would like to share just a note of appreciation for our principals and to our principals for all of your hard work. As you know, you see our principals at the beginning of the year, kickoff, welcome back. But what you don't always get to see are the other things they're doing with a student who might be sick, with being a crossing guard for a day, calling late at night, good news calls of the day. Several things that our principals do that go above and beyond. So I would just like to, again, share a note of appreciation and thank our principals for all your work. So thank you, principals. Next, you know what? Let me do this. Let's recognize them and put a name with a face for those of you that might be here for the first time. From John Shields, Principal Mrs. McCoy. From Blackberry Creek, Mrs. Ward. John Stewart, Mrs. Aversa. Mr. Zerpis, McDowell. Mr. Faulkner, Harder Middle School here. And Dr. Horn, High School Principal. And Dr. Burchell is our director of the Fox Valley Career Center. He acts as a principal and leads as a principal and does the principal duties. So last but certainly not least, Dr. Burchell from the Fox Valley Career Center. Our second group tonight that we would like to recognize is several of our teachers and administrators that have served on the personalized learning steering committee. So with that, they've received an award For about the last 6 years, we've been members of the Institute for Personalized Learning, which is a group that has started in Wisconsin and has spread across several states. So as a district, we've been a member and participated actively, and have not only participated, but led several activities and received recognition 3 or 4 times throughout our relationship. And with that, I would like to introduce Laura Garland and have her come and share our Trailblazer Award that we received. I'm going to help you hold that.
I need to put it in anybody else's hands. I've become attached to it. So this summer at the convening conference with the Institute for Personalized Learning, the Kaneland District Steering Committee was honored for some specific criteria that they connect to the team award. I think that's an important aspect, as this is a team award. It doesn't belong to any one individual. In Trailblazing Spirit, a team award is identified as districts who understand the need for transformational changes to learning and teaching, who are not afraid to take risks and question assumptions, who advocate for personalized learning as a prevailing approach to educating today's youth, who forge a path for others to follow, who act as scouts of new strategies and practices for themselves, peers, supervisors, and supervisees, who are not afraid to share their learning with others in a professional network, and who have influenced hope, commitment, and passion in educators and learners alike. So we do have several members of our steering committee. If you all could wave, I know many of you are standing and have come. It is a group of about 25 educators who have worked for the past 2.5 years to further personalized practices across all Kaneland schools, as well as to develop and plan for the opening of Ignite Personalized Learning Academy, which will open to students in grades 4 through 8 this coming fall of 2023. Thank you very much for the endless amount of idea sharing and generation and collaboration that you have all put into this award. I can't think of a group more worthy, and that I could not be more proud to work with. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura Garland, and again, congratulations to that group of staff and administrators and teachers. And tonight's actually a perfect trifecta. We principal appreciation, some of our staff, a number of our staff and administrators, and then in a few minutes after we do some other board business, I'll be back up here so we can recognize our students. So it's actually a wonderful night and a great fall evening for our school district. So with that, hold tight and we'll be back in a minute for our students.
The board appreciates the hard work of our principals. We think they're the best that we could have. And we appreciate the steering committee's commitment to personalized learning, and which is the foundation of our strategic plan. So we will move on now, and the consent agenda tonight contains the following action items: the approval of the treasurer's report from September 2022, the approval of the minutes of the 26th September 2022 regular meeting, the approval of personnel, the approval of destruction of audio recordings from closed session meetings from April 2021, the approval of the 2023-24 budget calendar, the approval of the SIP plan on first reading, that's the school improvement plan, and the following informational items: the first quarter budget report, the September 30th enrollment report with history, the employee position report, the personalized learning update, the student suspension data report, and field trip notifications. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mrs. Junk. Aye. Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons. Aye. Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. So this is our first opportunity for public comment, and I don't know if there's somebody that can bring me a signage. Is it over there? Nothing on it? Okay. So we have 2 opportunities for public comment. This is the first one. There's one at the end as well. Normally we have people sign up, but no one has signed up, but I want to make sure. Are there any public comments during this first go round? We'll have another opportunity later. All right, seeing none, we will move on. We will move on to J1 of new business, which is the recognition of Board of Education Art Award winners.
Thank you, President Witt. One thing that I would ask, I typically, after we do our board salutes, a lot of our crowd disperses. So when you do leave, if you do choose to leave at that time, if we can, Mr. Raleigh, if you can please get a picture of our art award winners down by the stairs and also our Trailblazer Group Award, because my guess is some people may leave after this, which is perfectly fine, but we would like to get that picture so we can get that information into the KCN and recognize the wonderful things that we're doing in our district. I am honored to be back tonight to share our recognition of our Board of Education Art Award winners. During COVID, we did have a 2-year hiatus, so we did have students doing great work and being recognized for their work. Unfortunately, during those 2 years, we just weren't able to do it in a public manner like we're doing it now. So it is really great to be back, and it's great to have this honor in this tradition as a school district who as a district values arts, values our students and the work we do with art and the value that it does provide for our students. So we're thankful to have this and thank our board for continuing to support, because our students do receive, our second place students receive a $25 check and our first place students receive a $50 check. And so students, make sure that when you get home that your parents cash that and you get that money. And if you don't get that money, let me know so your parents don't try to take your $25 or your $50. So what we'll do now is, as you can see, the artwork is displayed behind us. The artwork, unfortunately for the students, but fortunately for us in the district office, comes to the high school district office for 2 years. And for 1 year, it resides in my office. So it's the best decoration that I have with our awesome students. And then the second year, it's in the hallway in the district office. So if, as a family, you want to show off to relatives or somebody, give me a call, come on by and we can show you where it's at, hanging in the district office. We are proud of the work and we like to display it in that manner. And then after 2 years, we typically give it back to the school. Then the school either hangs it in the office or in a hallway somewhere. But as we've had so much great artwork over the years, sometimes we do end up just giving it back to the family if we don't have space. So that's the trajectory and the progression of the art as we receive it. So for our first recognition, we'll start with Kaneland John Stewart, Miss Carlene Gregg. If you please join me.
Hi, Cameron. Okay. I will first talk about the artwork and then why Cameron's so deserving of it. But for the actual lesson, what we talked about was obviously shading and how to blend those colors into each other. So if you see with the blue and the white blending in, also talking about cast shadows and how they would be placed, and talking about our own cast shadows when we walk down the sidewalk, how they get elongated. And they got to personalize it with the color scarves, the type of hats they wanted to put on their snowman. Some put accessories on it. Cammie just did exceptionally well with the blending of the colors and doing very smooth color pencil strokes. Cammie just overall, out of all the years that I've had her, has always gone above and beyond for every single project, and always ask Mrs. Gregg, can I do this? And instead of just the bare minimum. Absolutely. So Cammie is very well deserving of this award. Eliana. This is Eliana. She was my fifth grader last year, so now she's moved to but what we did here was oil pastel, again, with the shading, again, really diving into shadowing and really bringing those shadows into more of a 3D dimension of, with the pumpkins, showing those grooves of the pumpkins, if we're adding leaves, that how they cast shadow onto the pumpkins, and really blending of the colors, talking about the warm versus cool colors, when we should start separating the two so that way one can stand out from the other.
Thank you. Raise your hand if you feel like you just learned something new. Shading and color contrast, just soaking it all up. This is terrific. Thank you. Next from John Shields is Miss Greg. I think it's Adeline first.
Ellie, Bacon.
You can do it first.
Oh, did you want me to?
No, it's okay.
Oh,
It's okay.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry about that. Okay, this is Ellie Bacon. She was is my first place winner, and she created this artwork in second grade. She's currently in third grade, and as you can see, she did a wonderful job. In second grade, we continue our study of color theory, and for this picture in particular, we focused on warm and cool colors, and the students got to choose whether they wanted to paint the flower with warm or cool colors, and then they did the reverse for the insect and the background. And they also got to choose what kind of insect they wanted to draw. Flowers and insects aren't the easiest thing to draw, and you can see she did a really fine job with it. So I'm really proud of you, Ellie.
Thank you.
And then I have Adeline. This is Adeline Sukamel, and she was in first grade when she created this artwork, and I'm sure you all can see it's amazing work, especially for such a young student. And for this project, we really focused on bringing back those basic art making skills of cutting and gluing and assembly and creating collage, because a lot of our students lost those skills over the last 2 years when they were stuck at home during COVID. So I wanted to really review that with my first graders last year, and we incorporated different types of paint and different painting techniques, and they had a lot of freedom of choice on what colors they chose. We talked about architecture and different roof styles and door styles, windows, all those sorts of things. So there's a lot that this project encompassed, and she did an amazing job putting it all together. Good job.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Next, Mrs. Berth from Blackberry Creek.
All right, so this is Parker. She's currently in second grade, but she created this piece of Blackberry Creek when she was in first grade. We were looking on the artist, Peter Max, for inspiration on this one, and kind of using some of the same kind of peace and harmony and sunrise sunset themes that he had in his artwork. We were focusing a lot with color theory and working with our warm and cool colors, as well as the two different mediums that we used in the project. We have an oil pastel sunrise, and then we have reflections done with a temper paint. And when Harper was creating this piece, it was actually the second project we did during the school year. So she was pretty much almost like kindergarten, brand new first grader, creating this project in September. And she has an amazing work ethic and puts her heart and soul into everything that she creates. So congratulations. We have touch. She's currently in 5th grade. She created this piece when she was in 4th grade. We were focusing on creating a gradient or like a fade from one color to another when we created this piece. So the background was done with a really nice brushstroke layering liquid tempera paint that went from a nice light color at the top of a water scene to a little bit darker color down the bottom. We're also focusing a little bit with the mixed mediums and using a chalk pastel, which is kind of a tricky medium to grasp, but with the translucent nature of the jellyfish, it worked really well with this piece. Thinking about highlights and shadows and adding value to this one as well was a benefit to it. Dasha did something unique with her. She wanted to put current in her water. It seems like when she creates artwork, she always has that little bit of kind of an extra idea or inspiration that as her teacher, I enjoy actually seeing when she's able to kind of change or kind of make her own version of a project. And this one definitely showed that part of it. When you see this one close to it, kind of neat. It has this one little hidden clownfish. It's kind of a little secret detail that's kind of put in there. Let's get some color pencil work in there too. So congratulations, Dasha.
Next from Kaneland McDowell, Mrs. Skigowski.
So first we have Sukavi Bachu. So Sukavi did this in 1st grade. It is a self-portrait, and she has the color wheel represented right here. It's a collage. It's kind of funny because the shirt is actually made from a messing mat, which is what we use to put underneath our paper to keep the labels clean. And as you can see, she did a fabulous job. Sukavi is fabulous because she's always got a smile on her face. She's always super eager to find out what it is that we're doing here in art. And I just know this was 1st grade, and I know she's going to go on to even bigger and better things. I'm very, very proud of her. And we have Luna Nino. See if I'm showing up there. Okay, so Luna is our 1st winner. She did this project in 2nd grade. And you can kind of see a little bit of the art curriculum because we also did warm and cool colors for our landscape. We did warm colors for the sunset and then cool colors for the water and all the plants kind of framing the picture. She put a lot of her own ideas and thoughts into it, especially when it came to the vegetation. And then we incorporated kind of a 3-dimensional aspect as well by using this really fun stuff called Claycrete. It comes with kind of just a dusty, shredded paper, and you add water to it. And it's really fun to work with. The kids really have a blast with it in 2nd grade. And I just love it. I'm so happy that she's willing to part with it so that we can have it here and we go in 2 years. Again, Luna, everything she does is beautiful, and she's definitely art in her heart.
From Harder Middle School, Miss Farr.
Are we doing 2nd place?
Devin, do you want to come up and stand by this? And I'll try to, it doesn't do it justice to see it from a distance, so. I'm gonna walk around. So Devin Capadia is our 2nd place winner as our 7th grade student in Harvard Middle School. He completed this drawing on his own time. I learned about Devin's talent from Mr. Purnell, who had it in 6th grade. And Devin's dad encouraged me to restart up art club, which I did. First with Sugarville Art District and now with Kaneland. So thank you very much. Devin's interest in drawing started at young, about 7, and he prefers graphite, pens, and markers. This past week, I saw him skillfully use colored pencil. I'm quite sure he can handle many mediums. I asked my students what myths they wanted to dispel about artists. And his myth that he wanted to dispel was that every artist can draw people. I've gotten so many requests to draw people when I can't even make a decently shaped head. This sounds very familiar, Devin. I can relate to this as an artist who loves drawing and painting landscapes, architecture, and objects, but feels uncomfortable drawing portraits. Devin overcomes mistake and frustration in art, in his words. If I make a mistake on artwork, I just incorporate it into the drawing. I accidentally drew a super long line on this nominated drawing, and you can see it because I just made it part of the drawing. So thank you very much, and this is a wonderful artist.
Yeah, you can't hear it here, but it goes to home.
So Eliana Marks, come on up. Eliana Marks did this, which also kind of needs to get walking, but I can't do it. So I'm gonna have to Thank you. I'm going to later. Eliana Marks is our first place winner as our 8th grade student here at Harder Middle School. This work is a watercolor she completed on her own time. I noticed extraordinary sketches all term in my 7th grade art class. She was doing my assignments, and she was also, once in a while, I would see these amazing cats she was drawing on her own. Eliana Marks took some art classes outside of school as her interest in art developed. She has taken art in elementary school here and in 7th and 8th grade. She loves to draw animals, especially cats. She also enjoys landscapes and is currently enrolled in digital graphics, where she is excelling. Her favorite art media are watercolors and graphite. One myth about art she would like to dispel is that, in her words, I think the greatest myth about artists is that they are born with a skill or understanding of art. Instead, art is something that you can learn and exceed at. I completely agree with that statement, so I really love that. When she gets stuck on an art piece, Eliana says, if I'm frustrated with a piece of artwork, I mess up on something, or I just can't get a specific look I want, I usually walk away for a day and focus on something else. That is good advice for all of us in life, don't you think? Eliana is not sure where this art thing is headed, but with another recent award, the sky is the limit. So both of these works are incredible masterpieces for any age, and the dedication of these students to such work is beyond words. Congratulations to you both.
And now for Kaneland High School, we have Emily Vandelinder subbing for Aaron Damish, who's out today. So, Emily, thank you.
Mrs. Vandelinder, subbing for Mrs. Damish, who is at home with a beautiful baby daughter on maternity leave. These were actually both from her photography class, which she expertly teaches way better than I do. So I will speak to, but I was also part of the decision-making process as to why we picked these, so I can speak to the reasoning. Siddha. All right, well, I'll just talk about Siddha. She's in my AP art class now as well. So we picked this one when she was a sophomore. She's a junior now. So she probably is tired from taking the PSATs. We picked this one because it really has a nice example of composition. It does three really well, breaks the space up. It uses repetition with the droplets and lighting in a really interesting way. There's the sort of soft background with the high focus foreground really makes for a strong piece that stands out very nicely. So, and a lot of her work is this sort of detail-oriented. So for this one, you know, it's kind of a composition and using all of the elements, color and texture and again pattern all together cohesively. So that's and then we also, Olivia, you want to come up here. We also pick artwork in high school. We kind of work on communication of our what our interests and our hobbies, and also being an accomplished dancer. She puts that in her work as well. So we liked the feel and the mood of this one. Having the sort of stark pattern background and sort of harsh against the softness of the dancer, and then the lighter of the background, darkness. It has a different mood to it. Really brings out a little bit about yourself. I know this was part of a series sort of work you did where you had different dancers. We picked this one from that, but showcasing not only her talents outside of art.
Again, thank you for coming out tonight. How about another round of applause for our wonderful staff members? And now at this time, it's always my privilege and my honor to say congratulations to our young artists. Now that you have been paid for your work, you have 12 professional artists in our midst. So congratulations to our professional artists. And now, if you would, if you are planning to leave, if you would follow Mr. Raleigh down by the stairs, we want to get a picture of our trailblazers and our young artists. Again, thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for supporting the arts. It's not always a thing. It's
Fine, my phone. Yes.
Thank you for coming.
My wife wore a pumpkin shirt the other day, and I made a mistake.
You need some.
Just like a big pumpkin.
Some of the microphones weren't turned on at the beginning, and so do you have everybody? Are you able to hear everyone? No. Okay. How'd you do getting most of that?
Pumpkins normally aren't as large as these.
It says, "Can you hear me?"
That's what we thought, but we're like, okay, we can hear me.
I wrote it down. Thank you. I'll talk to her.
See if she,
Yeah.
if she needs a contact or two.
All right. Make contact and see what he says. Yeah.
That's
Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of
a
stuff.
great
so I don't have
picture.
Really good. Ricky.
I wonder if this is the first time we've seen him in a frame.
Yeah, probably.
Is this the first? Is it?
Love that.
That's cool. Very cool. So that's why it's so special. Because then you put all together and they're just look at it. It's gorgeous. Oh, look, everybody's here.
All right. Oh, goodness. It's hard eyes, so I guess that's good.
Feel free to spread out. Make yourself
All right. So we are going to move on to J2, which is the master facility plan. We have Dr. Lawler elsewhere on business, so we're going to call him in here and get him involved in this conversation.
If it was me, I'd say something stupid when I answered the phone.
It's a good call.
Watch it go to voicemail. Pick up. It's postponed for I was talking to a lady at an insurance or a lawyer's office this week for some setting of appointment. We got
Your call
done
has
with
been
chemistry.
forwarded.
Okay, love you. Bye.
I just
Just leave him a message. Let me leave.
get dropped. Okay.
Oh, gal.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good evening, sir.
Hello.
Hi.
All right.
Thank you.
So are you ready to do this?
Yeah. thank
All
you.
right. Okay, then we're just going to move right along, okay? So we're starting with J2. This is the Master Facility Plan Information Review and Discussion, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Layton.
Yes, thank you. If you recall from our last board meeting, there was a series of questions, and as a board, we determined, you determined that you're looking for some additional information, which is included in the packet. And Dr. Fuchs, Mr. Payton, Mr. Critta, and Dr. Horn are here to answer additional questions again. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Fuchs, and she can, I'm sorry, as a reminder, it was a two-step process or two-meeting process where we would have information tonight. And if there's additional questions, with the goal to come back at the second meeting in October to be able to take action at that time for future planning. So if that follows the same timeline, that's what this meeting and the next meeting would look like. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Fuchs.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I also appreciate our guests coming out tonight to help share the additional information in order to help the board make a very difficult decision. First of all, on page 2 of the report, the back side of the report, I've repeated or included both options 1 and 2 for the board's review. These were on the original recommendation, so that way you could remember what was included and what was not included. On page 3, it is listed with the WOLD letterhead. This is the information that the board requested that Mr. Critta put together for us. You'll notice that for each of the 10 potential projects, that there's a brief description, an estimated cost, and then the overall ranking. The overall ranking relates specifically to the E.O. Sullivan survey data results. And so that's where you can see the ranking. And then I did ask Mr. Critta to put these projects in rank order so that you didn't have to flip back and forth and have to figure out which one was 6, where 4 was, and things like that. On the last page then, Mr. Critta included a map of a drawing from the committee's work of the Master Facility Plan Campus. And so at this time, what I'd like to do is ask Mr. Critta to share the highlights of the additional information that he has provided. And then also, Mr. Payton and Dr. Horn are here and would be happy to answer any questions that the board might have. So Mr. Critta, are you? Perfect, thank you. And the microphone is on, you just won't hear it here, but it's for the video that's streaming. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here again.
Hello.
We'll have our HR team here recruiting your talent later this week. Awesome work tonight. Very cool. As Dr. Fuchs mentioned, we heard some questions about what's contained in some of those menu items, so to speak. And so we gave a little more detail to those, and that's really extracted right from the master plan report. So we tried to find the highlights of those and not get too far in the weeds, but at least we got more of a sense of what's included in each of those menu items as they were costed out. We also included some example field house. We'll reference that at the end of the list there. There's 3 field houses that would be somewhat familiar. I think one of them is more familiar at Central High School, just to give you a gauge of the square footage of the added complex at each of those sites, but also the field house proper, so to speak, which is the base field house where the track and the courts take place. As a reference, just for comparison, because those range in a little bit of size, and they were 75,000 at Huntley, 85 roughly at Central, and then at Honega was about 92. A little larger fitness space attached to that, and a little larger lobby, I would say. So those are some ranges of things just to give you a reference point to a larger version that was portrayed in the master plan for Kaneland was about 106,000 square feet, and that included a pretty generous public lobby and a lot of connecting pieces to connect to the existing building, which I think could be streamlined to some degree. So just a point of reference for everybody as you discuss, if that becomes something you want to talk about further, you have a little more detail on some examples.
And those costs that are on those, the additional field houses, those are what it would, that's not what they cost them to build, it's what it
Correct.
would cost us to build something similar.
Correct. And one caveat to that, when we published this last week, I was working with a couple of our construction partners to get current pricing. Up to the last week, I got a red flag call earlier this week from one of them that said we're seeing prices even hike a little higher. So I reached out to the administration just to give them a heads up that they're anticipating, just because of where fuel prices are going and steel prices and some things that they're seeing in this bidding market right now, that we're probably looking at about a 10 to 12% increase, because they're also trying to forecast what's this going to look like at a bid window, which would be likely about 8-9 months after you pursued a referendum in April. So just keeping that in mind, that those numbers are probably about a 10% shy of what today's costs would be, and I should say costs as we look at a bid window of potentially next fall or winter.
And that increases for
sense.
all the projects, not just the field
No,
house.
that would be really applicable to the field house. The item number 4, the Fox Valley Career Center. It's anything that's has some substantial addition space, building space. And then item 1 too, what we're seeing in the mechanical HVAC market is just some outrageous escalation. And so 1, 4, and the field house numbers, we should really have that 10%. I hate to bring bad news, but I'd rather have that news on the table now than later when we're trying to plan something and the numbers are shot. It's our best crystal ball that we have today.
For a year and a half from now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're right. It's speculative, but
Yeah, no, I wouldn't
best-
hold it.
Our
Yeah,
best educated. Yes.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So we prepared now for board questions?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
board members?
Just the field house specifically, and I guess more also the Fox Valley Career Center would apply to. Do you have any idea if we had 60,000 square feet, what kind of operating costs we're going to be adding to our budgets?
Well, there's so many variables as far as how much you're going to use that. If it's going into the evening hours, the early morning, the weekend. So the usage is going to be such a key variable in trying to track that. We did have some rough numbers that Huntley provided, and when they launched the use of their field house. And Dr. Fuchs, you remember we were in the
150
to 200-ish range for an annual impact to the use of building operation efficiencies or energy usage.
So 200. So we can figure for a worst case scenario kind of number with another 200,000.
Yeah.
What about for the square footage for the career center? Any idea?
The career center, it wouldn't be near that much because that's going to have a downtime in the evening. You wouldn't have the kind of round the clock usage. I would say maybe you're looking at a 30 to 40,000. That's just a rough guess.
Yeah, I understand we're guessing here, or educated guesses, but would some of that be offset by the improved efficiencies of the new equipment and the mechanical systems?
You will see some energy efficiency from your systems. keeping in mind that today's ventilation requirements, you're actually bringing more outside air. So that efficiency is a little bit offset by the fact that we are conditioning more outside air to meet the current ventilation requirements.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of a ebb and flow with that.
All right, so it's figure kind of a wash for everything but the field house?
Yeah.
Operating cost wise?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? And I don't know if this is a question you can answer, but I had heard that Fox Valley Career Center, some of the classrooms, their current space size, it's going to be different. It's going to actually be smaller in this new plans. Is that true, or is that?
I
or are
don't
they
know that to be fact.
Okay.
I think most of the spaces we were adding were targeting a square footage that would accommodate that program. So
Okay.
things that were coming over from Meredith, anything that was growing with, that it's not already set in a footprint within the building, would be adequate space for those programs. I don't know if there's more information that someone else might share in the master plan that I don't think we were downsizing any of the spaces at all.
Okay.
It
I
was
don't
either-
remember that conversation at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Dr. Lawler, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time, thanks.
Okay. I know there were questions about, I don't know if we want to move on to this now, but like
I have a couple more.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's
is it
fine.
about the structure of the building?
No, it's about these. Well, sort of.
Because I was going to say, we had questions about how to structure a referendum, if we could have more than one question. And I think you might have gotten some more information on that. Is that correct?
I'm still on the bullet points.
Okay.
Is there, no, my question is, are there any that have to go together? Like if we pick option 1, we have to do 3?
Yeah.
Just, that's,
There's 2 that are directly tied. You wouldn't be able to do the collaborative spaces because that's anticipating the vacating of the West Gym.
okay.
So if the field house isn't built, that West Gym would still be a viable athletic space, and you wouldn't be able to go in and renovate that to accommodate classrooms, which is, the collaborative space is really a social studies suite with some other kind of support space with that, because those are the smallest classrooms currently in the building as far as size.
Okay, so collaborative space and the field house are hand in hand.
Yep.
Okay.
I would say there is certainly some kind of a marriage between items, the athletic facilities, improved athletic facilities, and the campus reorganization. I would say those should go together, but we could probably revisit the campus organization a little differently. But if you're going to do the improved athletics, the entire campus, it's going to kind of prompt to look at entrances and parking, resituating parking. So those do have a tie. It's made a little softer than the other one, but there's still some synergies between those two.
Okay, thank you.
There's one more. If we choose option 2, you're gonna need to add a little bit of money in for the wood shop to be relocated, because it would need to be relocated.
Option,
It's at the bottom of, page 2. There it is.
option 2,
Yep,
It's written in there, I think.
it
add
is.
5 million. Okay, yeah, all right. It is in the bottom note there.
Yep,
The
you got it.
hyphen.
Thank
So
you.
that's part of the 54.8 million.
Yes, it is.
Final prediction.
Yep.
I had one more question and it's escaping me. but We can always circle back. Thank you.
So to address President Witt's question, Dr. Fuchs and I did have this discussion today, and Dr. Fuchs was able to make connection with those companies that help with referendum questions and how to develop them and what they look like. So with that, I'll let Dr. Fuchs entertain those types of questions and share the information that we learned today.
Do you want me to start with what I think the questions are? Okay, so I believe I had a couple questions asked. One is, are we allowed to have 2 referendum questions? And the answer is yes. Can they depend on one another? For example, can you have one question and depending on the answer, have a second? And that answer is no. They have to be independent. So for example, you could ask a ballot question that says, approve renovations to existing facilities up to 70 million. That would be the first question. Then the second question might be, approve renovations to facilities up to 122 million, or whatever number the board would select. So you could have two similar types of questions. You can put information in the question that distinguishes that the second question includes a field house, whereas the first question did not. So that is acceptable. However, it is not recommended to do dual questions like that because the voters tend to get confused and then they vote no to both. One example was in Stockton where there were 3 ballot questions and they all got voted down. So it's only a sample of a school district that tried something similar and it didn't work for them. Perhaps, you can always hope that the referendum committee educates, which we can educate, we can't advocate, that we educate our community so that they know exactly what's in which ballot question, if that's something the board is interested in pursuing. What we can't do, though, is say something to the effect of, do you approve renovations to existing facilities up to 70? And then if yes, what about an additional amount for a new field house?
Okay, and I just want to explain, that was my
Yeah.
question. I asked, because I was doing research, and I read an article that said, there was it wasn't in Illinois, but there was a school district that did that, and they said, well, and I thought, well, okay, so my fear is that by adding on the field house option, we will lose out on the infrastructure, which I think, which is more needed. And I thought if the second question was contingent on the first passing, maybe that was a good answer to the 2-question issue, but we can't do it, so.
So I'm
And that was,
sorry.
those answers were from Chapman and Cutler, is that?
That is correct. They would write our question for us, bond counsel.
So just to rephrase so I understand, we can put, will you support 70 million? Yes or no? Will you support 120 million? Yes or no? And if they vote yes for either one, I'm just trying to think through that.
That is correct.
So we could end up not passing the 70, but passing the 120 in theory?
You could, yes.
What if you ended up passing both? We would.
Great question.
But
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Yep.
think through the permutations of that.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that they would write the question in a manner such that the 70 million would be included in the 120, so that if it did pass both, you would have up to the 120 total. I believe would be the way that they would write that.
did they explain to you a little bit about, when you say confused people, that
Sure.
there's a lot of things that go on in my head when I hear that. How did they explain how exactly people get confused by 2 questions? Other than it's just a bunch of information and it's overload, or?
No, they basically she said that it basically could cause confusion, were her words. So not how, but it all has to do with the way it's written, and then the education of the voter, so that when they get to the ballot, they know what they're voting for.
That way they don't think it's 190 million.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, people will think it's a cumulative.
Yes.
That was
there's,
my concern.
yeah.
Yes.
And I've seen that before. I saw that in New Mexico. Remember APS's referenda? And everybody thought they were going for facilities and then operating fund. And everybody thought it was cumulative, though the operating fund also included facilities. And it,
Well, so if I may ask, is it possible to, rather than saying 70 million for these needs, these upgrades, and then 120 million to include the field house, say 70 million for this, and then the 50 million for the field house, isolate the two. And I mean, I could see how the voters could see it as either or potentially vote no for the 70 million, but say, oh, field house would be nice for 50 million. But at least it isolates the two. Because if I'm going to vote, and I'm not an educated voter, I'm up there going to the polls. I'm saying, oh, 70 million for this, and then another 120 million? No way. You know what I mean? So,
But in the way that so I was thinking about this afternoon too, and I thought, okay, if I go in and, things are tight and inflation is high, and I go in and I see, I think, gosh, I really want to help the schools, and I see 70 million, and then I see below 40 million, I think, well, I'm going to help them out. I'm just going to vote for the 40 because it's the lower one, and I'll help them out a little.
I see your
I'll
point.
be doing a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. But
And then we get a field house and we don't get
which is
infrastructure.
that would be my fear.
Yeah,
'Cause as much as I support the field house, I wouldn't want the field house and not the
well, I don't know if we could even. All right, so let's say that scenario does happen, just for sake of discussion.
Okay.
The board doesn't have to actually pass the bonds, right? If we get the field house, not the other, we can say, wait, this didn't work. I know the vote. Can we? No, I'm asking.
Makes me nervous.
I'm saying in an open meeting. I'm not trying to hide
I
anything.
don't, no, I'm just saying to go against
It's
voters.
the difference between may issue or must issue. There's now must issue language in those referenda. It's a may issue, that the district.
Up to.
May issue,
up
may
to.
issue, not must issue.
Because I guess thinking through this in my head, if let's say we need the infrastructure, we don't need a field house, we want a field house. So needs and wants. So the wants pass, but the needs don't. The board, I won't be here, but the board at that time could say, wait, this didn't work. We need to go back to the ballot the next time around, whenever that is, to
But then we're sacrificing the needs in the meantime.
the valid concern.
And I would fear, I would fear you lose the trust of the voters the next
Yeah.
time around.
Wouldn't people be angry if they turned out and they were educated and they voted for the field house and the other thing didn't pass? Wouldn't they feel betrayed?
No, I think if they're educated, they'll understand that. And that's going to be the goal of whatever the committee is for either way we decide to go here. If we do a good job of, whoever does a good job of educating the community, they'll understand that's a needs and a wants question.
I had another thought. Sorry, I feel like we're brainstorming here and spitballing. What if in April, we go for the 70 and we make a plan to go in November for the field house, like right on the heels of the other?
What's that do for construction schedule kind of issues if we, with the however many month gap that would create?
Well, we would have to do the same thing now, is try to anticipate the escalation for that shift in timing. You would lose about the same time frame and for design and construction, so that might put the field house, as far as getting in the field house, it could be up to a year, because you got you'll have a 7-month shift in voting, but if it passed in November, it doesn't, it just be the timing of when can construction start. It might not be able to start till the spring of the following year.
A frozen ground or something along those?
Right.
Okay.
So we would be breaking ground at a time where you might get ahead of that if we did something more aggressive. Like if everything was in the April question, you could be breaking ground the following spring. That's probably not the case if you pass it in November. Just because the timeline for design and bidding would put you past that.
Can you remind me? I didn't think there was an election in November
That's what I-
23.
Oh, sorry.
Nonpartisan election.
I knew that.
November 24th.
You explained that. You explained that to me last time, and
Yeah,
sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
I just always think April.
That's okay.
It sounds
So-
like it'll be
Wait,
as early
November
as January of 24.
Usually.
Because Illinois is playing around with their primary, so it could be January, February. It's typically March, but I've heard that could push up a little bit. So it wouldn't be November; it'd be about 4 or 5 months later, 3 or 4 months later.
Dr. Lawler, anything yet? Just checking in.
No, thank you. I guess I have some of the same concerns that everybody else is having, right? So I would hate to see us lose the infrastructure for the field house. I'm also still trying to grapple with the numbers. The fact that it's at 122 seems way off from our 70. So that's kind of where I'm just at right now.
Okay.
Well, 70 though to 120 is down from what, 150 something?
It also doesn't include that 10%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of that will be burdened with a little more escalation. It depends if you're pursuing the size field house that was part of the master plan, or if you try to pare that back a little bit.
That's where I was going. That was where
That
one of my
would,
questions.
that would bring it down if you're still doing all of the items.
All right. So just so I understand the steps, we vote on something, or we put an initiative on the ballot so that the voters can vote on something, whatever it is. It's 70 million for sake of discussion. Then we have to sell the bonds, or what's the order of operations for the rest of, before we can actually go in a classroom?
Sure. So at whatever meeting you decide, the first step is to direct the administration to request that the bond council create the ballot question. Then the board would need to approve that ballot question.
Okay.
Then it gets on the ballot, you set up we don't set it up, a committee forms and helps to win the election. Say, for example, you win the election and pass the referendum. At that point, the architects get really busy.
Thank you. That's exactly right. Design begins.
Exactly. And design begins, and we move forward as fast and quickly or slowly as needed, but assume probably 8 months on something like this.
Yeah, I would say we're looking at probably about an 8-month window for just taking it from schematic design through construction documents. That would be a fair window of time. So
I have a question,
Oops.
intermediate question.
Okay.
All right, so we approve the bond, tell him to go ahead and start spending money. Is there some committee or group that works with him because we have conceptual drawings, we don't have, this is.
They work with all the people that
Is that,
are impacted by the design and the drawings. That's when they get the staff involved, the committee. Yes.
there's a committee, like board members, what committee? I haven't been through this before.
That's
so-
okay. It's a committee similar to the Master Facility Plan Committee.
Okay.
We would certainly invite those people. But then, as different decisions are needing to be made, such as the renovations of the science classrooms, you would have that conversation with the science people. This is what we're looking at. What have we missed? What do we need to remember? What do we need to change?
yeah.
And the school board doesn't get in on that level. That's something administration and the.
Typically not.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
just.
I'm answering. Typically not,
But it's things,
but
but it's information we would bring back.
Okay.
Regular
exactly.
reports back to the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no law that says you can or can't.
Okay.
Typically, you wouldn't. So then at that point, we're in design. We're ready to go to bid. So at that point, once the design is done, concurrently, they'll put the bid documents together. We'll put it out to public bid like we've done before, just a typical bidding process where you advertise, you bring in the construction people, and you select your construction people.
Would it be a single bid general contractor, or would it be broken into pieces?
I think that conversation we still need to have. If a construction manager would be trade packages versus a general contractor, it would be a one stop. It would be one contractor responsible for all trades.
And there are pros to cons to both methods. So that would be another decision the board would make.
Okay.
Yep, along the way as we move forward with the designs. Once that person is selected and they're ready to put the shovel in the ground, that's at the same time we're working in the background getting ready for the bond sale. With the bond sale, say for example you start with the 70 million, but we only need about 20 for the first phase. you can sell just 20 million in bonds on that first phase.
So that would
For example, when we built Harder Middle School, we did it over 3 bond sales. We did 35, 25, and I think it was 20, something like that. So you get the chunk of money that you need for the initial phase 1. And then when you're getting close and you're needing more, you sell more as needed. You work with your professionals. They tell you the timeline. Things are delayed. They tell you the new timeline. and you work together to make it happen. So I'm not sure which steps I missed. If I did, please.
You did it perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very collaborative, participatory process that we would promote with as Dr. Fuchs said, a kind of a core planning group that would then break down into more of the user group input at the departmental level or the actual end user, that's staff that are in those spaces that are getting affected.
So, I'm sorry, but I have one more. So if I'm going to pick on the science classrooms, they decide they want the Taj Mahal, and this board wants them to build a nice Subaru or whatever, something cheap. How does that work out in the details?
So so by forming a core planning group, they would have some decision-making power as the user input comes in and it sounds like it's not aligning with the goals. And we also don't want to favor a certain department or part of the building. So the core planning group is kind of an equalizer group to hear that feedback and make some decisions. And then if there's some challenges that they're struggling with, we'll usually take that up to the administration and potentially even the board. We're saying, we're hearing this, we need some input of which direction should we take this, because we typically the core planning group will be able to wrestle with those and we'll come to a good spot. But occasionally we'll have to bring it up to as far as the board and say, here's 2 directions we're hearing and which one would the board support. That's pretty rare, but that would be the tie-breaking scenario.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm done.
Well, wait a minute. Okay.
And we would bring, as I mentioned, we would bring back at least 3 points during the design. Usually it's schematic and design development and construction documents. We'd bring the design progress to the board so you could see how it's moving forward and it gets a little more detailed at each milestone. But that's a point that you could ask questions to and say, why are these decisions being made? We can give you the background for those things. So.
I believe Mr. Carey has another question.
I do. Somebody asked me, what would a new high school cost? Just
Yes,
Oh.
you have been asked that several times.
Yeah.
Why don't you just build a new high school?
Without the 10%, but we had that committee, that question come up at the committee level, some of the community engagement, and we were in the 240 to 260 range for a new high school, 60 million.
260 million.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, if you were to replicate
Is that bare bones without a field house?
No, that would incorporate a
That
field
would
house.
incorporate a field
Yeah.
house, okay.
That would be about the same square footage you have with the plus a field house, just as a starting point to have that discussion, but we're in that 240 to 60 million range, yeah.
So, but that also depends on location too, because if we go to, like, there was a suggestion, harder space, but then we'd have to build athletic fields for high school sports. Is that a part of the 260 million?
Yeah, the 260 is kind of an all-in cost to create fields. The challenge would be if you try to do it on this campus, the chess moves of trying to do that on the campus you have would probably drive costs up beyond that. That's kind of thinking as a site that has some utilities, infrastructure, and you're starting from ground up versus trying to work within more confined limitations like an existing site.
So the board remembers anything at this point over about 82 million. And we do need to get special permission from the General Assembly. We've been told that if our voters say okay, that the General Assembly will most likely agree to it, but it is something to keep in mind. What does that 82 million represent? It's called our district debt limit. Unit districts are limited to 13.8% of their EAV of the total district. Our EAV might cross over $1 billion this year. I'm waiting to see where we're at. We're pretty close, but you could use $1 billion as a number, and then 13.8%, and then you have to subtract out your existing bonds. So,
Do you have any data, just off the top of your head, and if you don't, not a big deal, on how many districts exceed that and have that permission? Is it a common thing, or is it something that's?
I wouldn't say it's very common, but I will say that in the suburbs, when things were booming and growing, for example, Oswego did it. Do you know some other districts nearby that have exceeded their debt limit with General Assembly?
Well, we were working with Berkeley School District about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I guess it was. They exceeded it by quite substantially. And we heard the same feedback is if they won't deny that if your voters have supported it. It typically is kind of a rubber stamp at the legislative level.
To your point, Indian Prairie 204.
Indian Prairie went over theirs?
Temporarily.
Oh.
When they were building Nequa and Matia, they were temporarily, but then again, their assessed valuation caught up with it quickly.
Oh, sure.
I think Naperville got into Naperville 203 was there for a little bit during, I think when they were redoing the middle school. And because but then again, their growth caught up. I think Bolingbrook might have as well.
Okay.
I have not heard anybody get denied if they've passed. I've never heard that.
Okay, good to know.
So, first, are there any other questions about the plans or that stuff?
Is there any more discussion to be had regarding the lowering the size of the field house to therefore lower the cost, or is that not something we want to? I know last time we were talking about 100,000 square feet compared to 80,000.
About $400 square foot was the rough cost you were.
What, I'm sorry?
$400.
Yeah, we're based on the current information, we're probably at about $450 a square foot.
Okay.
And
Looking
the
at field house construction right now.
3 samples that Mr. Critta discussed are on the second page of his list near the bottom.
The central field house is probably one that may be most familiar to the district, and that is a pretty, I guess that's a pretty good example from a square footage standpoint. The house, I think I've heard that the seating or the capacity to have some spectators is pretty good. I know Huntley, that's one thing that their actual footprint of the field house proper is about 5,000 square feet less than Central. So you can imagine that might put a little bit of a damper on getting spectators within the field house itself.
So I assume that when we planned for whatever 106,000 square feet, that we did so for a reason. So can somebody, I wasn't in the committee, I mean, what would we be losing? I mean, I can kind of see, but is it significant? Do we think it's significant? Does the high school think it's significant?
A two-part answer to that. I'll let Dan take the second part. Yes, when the design phase, the 380-page document, that's where we went through and looked at everything that would be not Taj Mahal necessarily, but what would be ideal and would fit the needs that we have as a school district. So based on the design of having a track and a weight room and a community room, foyer area, that was all that would meet our needs and would be most appropriate for the size of our school. So that's what the master facility plan or committee looked at and drew up as the original design. But that piece, if you would, Dan, could you share a little bit about the difference between what we would lose from 106,000 square feet to 65, 70, 80,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think at the very conceptual level during the master planning process, there was some design of having a pretty large public lobby facing the west. I think if we looked at maybe reorienting where people are coming into the building and try to do more of a shared approach with other renovations, that you could have a north entrance point and reduce quite a bit of that lobby space. It was a generous lobby, and I think it was at a conceptual level. You know, we're kind of diagramming boxes. We're not getting into the minutia, but I think if we really studied how we could make that more efficient, we could get closer to the central model, because they have a lobby space, and in talking to at least the construction partners, it seems like it's very suitable for the kind of crowds they have and the influx of people coming in for events. So I think it's a good place, and I think your athletic director was familiar with that model as well, from having events there, and seemed like it was fitting the needs. Although I don't know if he had a chance to look at the detail that we broke out of what each field house has for amenities.
The one question I would have would be, you've noted in the central model, the upper level classrooms are not included. I would want to know from the high school, what issues that would or wouldn't cause.
Yeah, at Central, they actually had a classroom wing that was part of that. I don't know how it was phased, but I just didn't want to include educational space that would be not the same pursuit you're having as a field house. They had a whole classroom wing. I don't know how many classrooms, but it was a 2-story wing that was adjacent to the field house, but was not a supporting component of the field house. So I didn't include that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the other thing in the model that we had for the long range plan, there was 2, I'll call them health classrooms, or maybe supporting classroom spaces. That'd be another thing we could look at. It. Could we try to absorb that into the building somewhere with some of the other renovations?
Okay.
Oh, Dr. Lawler, do you have any questions?
Unmute.
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay, thanks. So, I don't know if this is the time to bring this up, but I'm gonna bring it up now because I may forget it if I don't. Just, the restrictions on who can help with the referendum and everything, board members can help. You can't use any school property, we can't use printers, computers, mail room, mailings, anything like that. District employees can't do anything on district time. I would assume, we'd have to check on this, but I would assume Maureen would say, even off time, probably it's not the best look for district employees to, be out there trying to get a yes vote. So it would have to be pretty much an independent thing. And the IASB, if anybody's interested, has very specifics on who can do what. So if you want to look that up, you can. So then my question is, what else do you need from us? Do you need any interim direction from us tonight, like before we vote next time?
No, I don't think there's any additional direction we need. We just want to make sure that we have all of the questions that you had, to make sure we have all of the answers, so that everybody on the board feels fully informed to be able to have the conversation at the next meeting to determine the recommendation that's going to be made.
So what does that look like? Well, I mean, is the recommendation still going to be option 1 and option 2, or is it going to be something different? Because I don't know if the rest of the board feels, are these still even what we're looking for after all this conversation? Is option 1 or option 2? I guess, so yeah, what
So we could do
on?
that tonight. We could decide whether or not we would need to ask you for another option if we wanted it. So.
Yeah, and what we could do, you're right on that. What it may take is some additional time because of the, Mr. Critta, the escalation that he referred to. What we could do is our option 1 and option 2, the pricing now might be slightly, it will be different. And then the all-in on a field house, that would be different too. All of those numbers would change. So what we could do, based on this conversation, Dr. Fuchs and I spent more of our time coming up with the answers and not that in-depth question of, does our option change, our recommended option change? So we probably still need some time to relook at the numbers, see what the numbers would be, and then determine if it's still the same option with slightly different costs, or if there's a different recommendation from administration is what we need to review.
Okay.
And then if the board does have any other questions, we're always willing to gather more information and research what we need.
So forgive my ignorance. I don't know if this is a stupid question, but these categories we've lumped. So like, let's take modern learning environments at 11.3 million.
Which first page?
It's the first
Got it. Okay, I see it. It's yeah.
But they kind of break down rank number 3. All these options here, they all end up at this cost of 11.3 million. Now, what I was kind of wanting, and I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I was kind of wanting to see a little more of, you know, detail in what each entailed, and, you know, where we could kind of slim up on certain things. Is it one of those things where we have to do all these bullet points in modern learning environments in order to complete this task? Or is there room for I guess my concern is that we're given this menu and we're told, okay, you can pick this, and this, but they're categories. It's like if I was at a restaurant, I don't know, this is a bad example, but you know, if I was buying a car and they say, well, you can either get this one with air conditioning and manual transmission, or you can get this one. This is terrible. I'm terrible at example. You know what I mean? I feel like it's like, okay, you guys can pick this, or this, and we lump it all together. And I just don't feel like there's a lot of latitude. There's a lot of, you know, movement. And so for me, it's like, well, maybe we could cut costs elsewhere. Maybe we don't need everything in this category. I know that's going to take time, and I'm cognizant of the fact that, you know, we're up against a deadline, but I'm also concerned that, you know, I want to make sure that the voters, what we're paying for, I'm a taxpayer, what we're paying for are adequate. Not only adequate, but we're getting the most bang for our buck, essentially, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Well, I can give you a little context on how these were situated. The categories really were drawn right from the master plan process. So they were, for instance, to support, you know, your foundation of personalized learning, those modern learning environments were really scouting the opportunities within the building to move your spaces, your environments closer to that personal learning or student agency model. So to go in and menu this out in detail, say, well, we're not going to do the library learning environments. I couldn't tell you if that's going to tip the apple cart and say, whoa, that's the most important thing on that list, because it was clumped together as one important thing. Does that portray the master planning process to some degree? Because I think when you get into menuing these out, you also start talking about, if we take something away, what is there a ripple effect to the other items? And that would be, you talked about time, that would be the expense of time to figure out, okay, let's pull this one off. It's 500,000. What else suffers, or what else has to go away with that, or can't we do? So there is a lot of synergy between these items. Some would be a standalone item, but I think I can't tell you how the committee would feel, because I don't think they ever structured this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 within that list. And that would be true with the site improvements. Anything else is, once you start going down that road, what don't you do, and try to extract from that list.
Well, that was my question, the ripple effect. You know, do we have to? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but do we have to, or are they all tied in? Yeah,
I think they're tied to the concept of improving the learning environment. I can't tell you which one is more important than the other. I think that would be a whole other dialogue, maybe even at the committee levels, to find out what could we not do on that list.
When some of that push and pull occur during when you actually start working on the designs on the design committee, though?
It will, yeah. I mean, if this is the targeted group of improvements, then we would kind of negotiate bits and pieces. If we're gonna put a little bit more into the classroom, does the library get a little bit different? But we usually don't start with costs. We don't limit the design by, you only have this much to spend in the library, that's all you get. We look at it much more holistically. So there is some ebb and flow to those design conversations.
I would also want to caution that, and I'm not saying this is what you're suggesting, that the board make those decisions based on the menu. That's really overstepping, I think. Especially because we had a committee, that worked for a year and came up with the plans, and it was based on, educators and administrators who know what the needs are of the students and things like that. So I wouldn't want us to get the prices and then have the board start chopping away. That would be, in my opinion, inappropriate.
Well, to some extent, it goes beyond my understanding of the process, because I wasn't here from the beginning, and so I understand that, this, obviously you guys weren't thinking this up and threw it all together in a pot and said, okay, we're gonna do this. There was logic and discussions that happened, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, good question.
I was the same way last meeting. I was hoping for a little bit more specific too, but I also don't know if that's necessarily the most appropriate place for us to be. How deep do we get that into as a board? Because like modern learning environment, just again, using this as an example, and again, like, Mr. Gonzalez said, we weren't here. We were new to the board, so this was started before us. So we're trying to catch up and learn more about it. But like, repurpose underutilized cafe and concessions. To me, I look at that as somebody naive going, well, that's a want, so how much was, so I'm just using that as an example. So being naive to the whole process of what was part of it. So how much does that, could we take that 11.3 down to 9 million or something, so it's, again, I think we're trying to look to, is there places that we can bring this, get, ranking 1 through say 6, whatever that looks like, and get that within our 70 million, and then also somehow put a field house to be a part of it. So I think that's where my brain is going to. So go ahead.
What I would say, for example, where it says what you just said about the cafe, that's the old cafe that sits in the middle of the building, and right now it's wasted space. Right. And so that's why that's in there, is because it's wasted space that needs to be reconfigured into a modern learning environment. I would echo what Teresa said. The board authorized the administration to put together a committee. It included a couple board members. Unfortunately, one's no longer here, so Ryan's our only representative. We went through a comprehensive process of the needs of the building, and I guess I value the time and effort that all of those people put into that process. We also have a new principal, so that person's turned over. COVID didn't help us, right, because it stretched this out, but I do believe that what we need from the board is the big picture. How much money are you interested in asking the voters for, in order to accomplish the most that we can at a time when costs are escalating and our wants and needs are a little bit stratified?
So how does that help you guys now to get to that point of figuring out a new option 1, option 2? Is it more, do you need more from us, a price point, and then, or is it?
Well, we paid E.O. Sullivan, and they've kind of put their hat on 70 million. So I think that's probably one of the first decisions is the board interested in staying within that or going above that? Because that would certainly make a difference. So maybe that could be a place to start.
I think that, my understanding was that was the next meeting, was where we would talk about.
Well, the next meeting would be the final determination. Well, at least right now, the 2-step plan at the next meeting is when the board would determine that and direct the administration to go and do that. But as far as what Dr. Fuchs said, I would agree with that. The committee put the time and effort in to come up with the plan, the size of the field house, all of those things, and that 380-page document to go through and fine tune both, comb
With a fine tooth comb.
to go in and shift it at all. It'd be a process that would be far too long to be able to bring back and be ready to do for the spring. It would just be too much of that, and like Dr. Krug shared, the committee from field house to classrooms to reconfiguration of spaces, all of that was done during that time frame with those recommendations, and also with the other piece, Board Member Simmons, the E.O. Sullivan. That's why we configured our two options at the 70 million or lower, because of the findings from the survey, the findings from the feedback, to best support what the voters, what the survey results said, and also be fiscally responsible and target the priority areas that would get us, for lack of better terms, the greatest bang for the buck.
So would it be, I mean, I don't know that there are big arguments with, I mean, there are arguments or disagreements with some of the two options. But the biggest thing is, you know, is there a way to add a field house? I mean, that's the biggest question. So if you brought us back, if we kept the two options, and then if you just said, you know, a scaled down field house would be X amount, or the 106,000 square foot field house would be this amount, and then we would have all the information to make that determination next time, whether or not we're doing one question or two, or 70 million or more.
Well, if I add up all the stuff on the list, it comes to 122 million, if math is right. So
Yes.
I think in my mind, I would rather have the question of 70 or 122, not just limited to the field house. If we're gonna exceed it.
All or
No, like, dude.
Needs or everything.
Yes.
Okay.
That's just me.
I tend to echo that. I really feel that we should leave it up to the voters to decide whether or not they're gonna. I respect the E.O. Sullivan data, and I don't think that we should write it off as, you know, whatever. But at the same time, I've heard a lot of public opinion, that says that they will support it. I've also heard a lot of public opinion that says they won't support anything. That the school's not getting any more money. Our taxes are too high.
Right.
So I think at that point we should just let the voters decide.
And I love the idea of, I wish we could do it without risk of the needs.
Yeah.
I feel like we're risking, you know, somebody's gonna go in and say, you know, wow, who do they think they are asking for 122 million? And some of them are gonna go in and say, who the heck do they think they are asking for 192 million?
And that'll be.
And it'll be no, and that's my concern. Otherwise, yeah,
It's a valid
voters should
concern.
decide.
It's a valid concern.
It's a valid concern. It is. I guess my perspective is I feel like I kind of started this ball about 4 years ago, wanting to build a field house, and in my mind, all right, once we got to looking at the overall campus structure, the high school is older than I am and needs updates. So I've always kind of tied the two together. We need to do minimum need to do the upgrades to the high school to make it a modern environment for the kids and the teachers and the staff. I still think that the field houses would add value to our educational programs and the district. So I come back to the two-part question for the voters, and I know we're rolling the dice. I understand that, but that's where I land.
Well, I think that's the role. Sorry, to cut you. I think that's the role of these individuals that are wanting to support the field house. They need to get out there and they need to say, this is how it's going to bring value. I personally feel, and I've polled individually, my job just puts me in front of the public, and I know it's a narrow group, but I polled them, and the people that don't want to support the field house, they don't want to support any. They're like, no. So the people that are going to say they have the audacity to ask for 120 million, they're going to say they have the audacity to ask for 70 million. I feel like it's those same people are going to, and that's just my opinion. But
When you look at the tax impact though, and I know the 122, I think the number was 568 on a
$300,000
home.
568, so that would
Wait, it was the middle. was it a 300 or was it 270?
Just roughly. I'm not going to hold you to anything.
Yeah,
No,
70 and 300.
I'd have to pull that back out. I apologize.
So
there are people who have homes that are worth more than that, and we're talking they're gonna be pushing $1,000 a year.
okay, that's what I'm asking though. So on a $300-ish thousand house, you're looking at did you say roughly a 500? 500.
68 is what they gave us.
Okay, so just for easy math, 550 on a $300,000 house, and then what would it be if we did the 120 though? That's
No, the 120 is the 550.
the 120 is the 550. Okay, that's what I'm. Okay,
So but the 70, I don't,
would be less than.
would be,
Yes.
It was like
it was
three something, or
three
two something.
I don't remember that number or chart for some reason.
Yeah, there were the three
Way back
different numbers. There was something in the 200s, high 300s, and then the 568, based on the three different levels, the 34 million, the 70 million, because there was the bottom level of the 34, 35, I believe, then there was a 70, and then the 122. So I think there were three tiers, and those were that was the tax impact for each of those three tiers.
Could you bring that information back next meeting?
And if I can get it, I'll get it now. But yes, I
I'd
can.
rather have it as part of the packet so we can,
Sure,
please, and thank
I
you.
can definitely bring that back.
and I will put it out there that, if we end up running a question that includes a field house, I better see droves of people that are willing to be on that committee, and then somebody's gonna come in and they're just gonna start up that committee and they're gonna work really hard.
I think our first question next week has to be, are you in favor of 2 questions versus 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm not.
Or that way, or are you in favor of exceeding the 70 million? Is it the amount, or is it really the number of questions? Just,
I mean, it's both.
right. And we can talk,
I personally am not, I think that we should respect the data that we received from E.O. Sullivan. So I'm not in favor of putting a question on the ballot that does not exceed that amount.
Rephrase for me, please.
So I would like to see, these are the needs at under the 70 million based on what the public has told us they were willing to tolerate. I'd like to give that option because I don't want to completely ignore what the public has said. But I also don't want to eliminate the option of a field house, because if there's enough of the public out there that wants it, that is willing to exceed, and maybe the data was skewed, or maybe we didn't get, enough people that support the field house respond, I think that the option should be there. So I guess I kind of side with Meg, but also don't. I think that there should be an option, but I also, if the only option is to exceed, I don't know if I could support it. I think we need to respect the data.
So are you saying respect the data on the
70 million.
first question? So then not a second question?
No, I would like to see 2 questions. That's where I'm saying I differ from she.
Okay.
You mentioned you'd only like to see 1 question, and I imagine you want to respect the data, so you want to keep it under 70 million. That's where we differ.
Well,
I'd
I
like
would
to see 2
prefer
questions.
we look at something like option 2, which says we're not going to take you for all we can this time around. We're going to keep it low, and then next time we'll do a field house where we want it to be.
And then for option 1, for the 70 million, are we gonna go as far as then to take ranking 1 through, stick with what was figured out until we get to 70 million?
No, I
Stick
said
with the
we would
option.
No, I'm just asking, in general, that,
Well, the recommendation may change if I understand that correctly, right, Dr. Layden?
Dr. Fuchs and I would have to revisit, because I don't want to speak for her right now, but option 1 has been our recommendation, taking out the 2 that are paired together, the collaborative spaces and the field house, because that gets us the greatest amount of restructuring, infrastructure work, staying within the E.O. Sullivan, being responsible to that need. So that's where the 7.9 million came from.
Okay.
the reason I ask that too is because some people have looked at the community and they've seen like the Ignite on there. I think we need to do some education and to explain what the Ignite,
We do.
what that entails. But like when they look at that and they see the A.O. Sullivan, if we're respecting their data, it is number 10, ranked number 10. and it's in our option 1. So that's why I'm asking too. If we're going to respect the O'Sullivan's data, that 70 million is what we should shoot for. Should we also shoot for the ranking? And I just see that more with the community going, well, you're not even following. You're saying this, but you're not saying that. So we're saying 70 million, but we're not following the ranking. So the community feels like you've listened to us on one part, but you're ignoring this part.
Which is why there's option 2.
Yeah.
That's
So-
what option 2 entails.
I would not like, or the idea of option 2 to go away. I would like, in ranked order, we hit the 70 million and we stop. We don't add, you know, and if, you know, number 5 would tip it over. You know, I'm not in favor of adding things from further down the rankings because we have a little bit of money left over and they fit. So my preference is with Meg. I would like to not exceed the 70 million.
Let's see, page 1 takes us to 61 million.
All right. I would like to stay below what the community, what E.O. Sullivan found that the community would tolerate, the 70 million.
So
And then, you know, I just feel the risk is really great in putting people off by adding a second question.
Ranks. All right, just so I understand, Teresa, I'm not, first page gets us to 61, and that's 1 through 6. We're, next rank, number 7 rank is the field house, which puts us over. So do you want to skip to number 8?
No.
You want to stop at 6? Because,
I want option 2.
okay, fine, but option 2 isn't necessarily 1 through.
Yeah, that's not following the same data. It's not respecting E.O. Sullivan's data either, because it's choosing like campus reorganization and new high school entrance, which is 9 and 6 over Fox Valley Career Center, which is 4.
That's what's so difficult about just having these 2 options. It's like, okay, let's keep it under 70 million. What can we fit in there regardless of what they want? And again, in line with respecting the O'Sullivan data, like, why? Just because we can fit it in, we're going to do it?
Yeah, and I don't like that either. But the other thing is, and I think I mentioned this last time, and I wasn't thinking of this, I'm not in favor of the Fox Valley Career Center stuff. I feel like our taxpayers get double hit because, you know, we have to pay for the improvements, and then any tuition increases are going to also hit our students. And I don't know, you know, to me, it seems like a better way would be, and this isn't the way it works, so you know, it might be too bad, so sad, but I think the Fox Valley Career Center board should get together and say, we need this amount of improvements, so let's increase tuition over the next 5 years and then do it.
Yeah, we get hit for the capital cost and the operating expense.
Yes, and
we're bearing almost the entire capital cost.
Right.
I share the same opinion, and with all due respect, because I know Fox Valley Career Center is near and dear to your heart, but I share the same opinion. I don't think I could have vocalized it any better. I think that it's not. I don't think it's something that our taxpayers should fully support to this extent. I think we should find other means.
So I respect all that. And like you said, it is something that is very close to my heart. So is athletic field. And so is, you know, restructuring and making sure classrooms are upgraded. So I'm not weighing one or the other, but what I am weighing is the community voted that, ranked it as number 4. So for us, for 3 people to say no to Fox Valley Career Center, again, we're shifting back and forth. Either we're going to follow E.O. Sullivan's data or we're going to choose what we want. And so I think that's where we need to come to terms with. If we're going to respect their data and say 70 million, plus also the ranking, it's giving our community, we asked them for their voice, and now we're picking and choosing what part of their voice we're listening to.
I'm not certain that they understand the way that the Fox Valley Career Center is funded.
They don't.
And I don't think when it first came out, I don't know that, you know, it took some explanation at the meeting here for us to grasp that it was, well, wait a minute, that doesn't sound quite right.
Yeah.
So I feel like the Fox Valley Career Center upgrade is a different animal because it involves different things. Otherwise,
And I'm not arguing with your point. My question is, if, just so the administration is clear, I guess, how do you group stuff together to get your number that you want to?
Well, and that's because as I'm listening, trying to take notes. E.O. Sullivan did have the listing down, but as they listed it, what Dr. Fuchs and I did, we assessed the 10 items, stayed under the 70. But I guess my question for clarification is, it sounds like items, in part from hearing different board members, it sounds like 1, 2, 3, 4, but not 4 because of this, then 5 and 6, but not 7 because it's too expensive, and 8 and 9, or some derivative therein. So I'm not sure which of the numbers, or which of the E.O. Sullivan, if we go straight to 1 to 10, stay and which get removed, because however the board directs us, we can go back and bring it, we can build it, we can put together 3 different options and bring it back with the first option and then a second option that's a second question, if that's what the board wants. Just trying to get a full understanding of which of the items and where the priority in E.O. Sullivan falls. If it's one of E.O. Sullivan's top 5, then it's okay, but anything after 7 doesn't work, or 10 won't work, but 10 still keeps it under the 70 million, number 10, item 10, those things. So I guess that's where I'm trying to wrangle the thoughts.
so you can't do 7 because of the cost. You can't do 8 because you can't do 7, because collaborative spaces require the field house.
Those two are paired together, yeah.
So
And then
so
you-
we're really only talking about 9 and.
Well, if you pull out 7 and 8.
I thought,
and that's where the
I
two
thought
are.
option 2 worked for me, but I did.
And
I
that
don't
is,
know what other people think.
All right, so just so if you go 1, all right, if you go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, skip the field house and the collaborative space, 9 and 10, we're well under 70 million, right? Is that?
Is that
That's
option 1?
option 1, I
option
think.
1. And then option 2 does the same thing, but then it pulls off Fox Valley Career Center and Ignite, because Ignite was rated lower, and it takes off Fox Valley Career Center because of the concern over the cost structure and the fact that it's outside of the full Kaneland Board purview. So that's where option 2, the rationale behind option 2.
So I don't remember from I feel like, and I know I'd have to go back and look at all of the E.O. Sullivan data, but I thought when we got down to 9 and 10, the high school entrance and the Ignite Personalized Learning Academy, that it dropped significantly. Like it was not just, oh, they're less and they're a little less. I thought it was like significantly less. And we have gotten a lot of communication to the board, whether educated voters or not, or people who understand Ignite Academy or not, but we've gotten a lot of feedback that has said, don't give us what we don't want. And Ignite Academy was on there, and so was the entrance, the high school entrance, and the Fox Valley Career Center in some, but not all.
So, I guess we don't have anyone from E.O. Sullivan here today, but I mean, what kind of tolerance do they generally have? Are we talking 70 million cap, or is it?
Is there a margin of error?
Yeah, I mean, you shake your head yes, but can we? So
That is what I remember, that was like as high as they would recommend you going. They would recommend a little lower.
Yeah, I think that's a fair
16,
statement. That's what I recall
It
too.
was more of a
Yeah.
not to exceed.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
I think that was your.
but I don't remember, and I don't know if anyone does, if you went to 75, did it drop to like you go from 100% success rate of passing to a 10%? I don't, or was that data even provided?
I don't think it was graduated out. If you go up $1 million, it goes down. If you go 5 million, it goes down. I don't think they had that.
Okay. It was
I
just
don't think so either.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It was like 3 chunks.
For some reason, in communications to the board, there has been a lot, and I think a lot of it is lack of understanding. There has been a lot of anger about the Ignite Academy. So I am concerned that if that is on an option, it will put people off. And they will be like, we told them we didn't want that. And they'll put it down. It's just a concern because almost every, we haven't gotten a lot of communication. I'm making it sound like there's a lot. We really have not, you know, and even after the last meeting, it was silent for quite some time, for 2 weeks. And we just got one.
I got one too, but I don't think it was the same one you did. So it was the high school question of why don't we just build a high school. That was the only question I received the only communication I received at all.
Yes. And just so everybody knows, the reason you don't see answers to some of these things the notifications that come into the board, if it doesn't have if they won't put their name on it, we don't respond. They get a response that says, everybody sees it, but I'm not going to respond to, you know, super angry at the school board.
Unsigned
at
by
Kaneland,
yeah.
IHateYou.com, you know, so.
And we've gotten those.
So, yeah, so that's, so everybody knows why you're not getting responses from me.
If it's not signed, I won't read it.
Yeah. So, anyway. So we kind of know. You're a 2 question.
Yes.
Are you a two question? Sorry. Where do you fall?
Yeah, 2 questions.
You're a 2 question? Yeah. Dr. Lawler, do you know, are you a 1 question or a 2 question person?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. I'm a very strong proponent of staying under the 70 million. But if we find that we need to go above the 70, then I would like 2 questions.
Yeah. So, as far as direction goes, there's a 4-3 split, you know, with some tolerance for a 2nd question, I guess. So what you bring back, I guess we need to have.
Is it 5-2?
Yeah.
Was it 5-2? I thought it was.
I'm 2 question. You, and then
Oh,
Megan, Teresa.
We were 1 question. Dr. Lawler said he prefers not to go over the 70, but if we had to do the 2nd question.
I thought he said 2 questions.
The answer was unclear to me.
He said he really doesn't want to go over the 70, so. I guess I take that
We'd
as
only ask the
his true.
2nd question if we're willing to go over the 70.
True.
That I'm not willing to do, period. Not that I get to do the deciding vote, but you can sway me on 2 questions that you can't sway me on.
Okay.
Fair enough.
But it sounds like we need to be able to see what 2 questions would look like.
And it sounds like direction on the first question, we need to, Dr. Fuchs and I, administration need to potentially revisit the option that we bring back with some adjustments on there from option 1 and 2, a hybrid new option, and then what 2 questions would look like.
So I want the people who are proponents of 2 questions. I know I heard clearly from Mr. Carey, Mr. Gonzalez that they want just the needs and then the whole shebang. So 70 and 122. Yes, you're there.
Yep.
You're there. So everything, not just like not a pared down field house.
I'd entertain it. That's the only.
We gotta make a decision.
Okay. The only thing is the square footage of the field house. That's the only thing that if the administration came back and said, if you're going to do option 2, make it this size, I'm fine with that. If it's a smaller foot, but
straying from the facility plan, from the 100 to the 106,000 to the 80,000 or 74,000, one of those other.
Yeah, I feel like that's leaving. I want to save the money on that footprint, but at the same time, I feel like we're dismissing some work that was already done. But if you can reorientate the building to the other direction and save, I know I'm not giving a clear direction here, but
I think we could look at exactly that and pare it down by, I want to say that one lobby was about 8,000 to 9,000 square feet. So we could at least pull that off and try to reorient how you would enter this building. That would be pretty easy, because I don't think that the master plan committee said we need a lobby of X size. I think it'd be nice to have a lobby facing the west, but I think if we reorient that, we could pare down that footprint by at least 7,000 to 8,000 square feet, something like that. And that would get you, dollar for dollar. I'll have to apply the escalation number to that square footage, so I think you're still gonna be tracking about the same range.
Okay.
With the give and take, but at least you'll know maybe it's not something that matches the master plan, but it would at least get your amenities, the things that you need that were supported in the master plan. If that
So it
makes
sounds
sense.
like there were 4 people who would like, if the 2-question option would be 70. And
Wherever that number
and-
lands,
and
120-ish.
Yeah.
I guess the point of clarification I had, and Dr. Fuchs, I don't know if this was your question, if you had something different. The 70, as we presented option 1, stayed within the 70, just discounting the not discounting, but taking out the 2 connected areas. But then I also heard that 70 option, there were some things in here that the board said are no, or potentially should be a no. So is the 70 still the option 1, or is it requesting that Dr. Fuchs and I and administration relook at option 1 and shift it based on some of the other E.O. Sullivan rankings or feedback?
I mean, I personally feel like we shouldn't spend $4 million on the high school entrance.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I personally feel like we shouldn't spend $4 million on a high school entrance. That's a personal opinion. I think there are things in here that we really aren't a need if we're talking needs versus wants. So, I don't, but again, we got to respect the process, and I wasn't there through the process. And so maybe there's things beyond, my knowledge as to why security was brought up with the new high school entrance,
Yeah.
And something that I forgot during the process too is that maybe that name high school entrance is a little misleading. I think there's a lot of stuff, student support stuff that is involved in that. So like, it's student services, psychologists, things like that. It's not just a doorway, I mean, like when you hear high school entrance, you're thinking just doorway, but it's a whole student support network of offices and suite of offices that is included in that. So yeah, we don't need a $4 million front door, but all of the stuff that's included in that $4 million is pretty necessary for the school.
Well, and that's what I struggle with, because when it was presented in the meetings, it was presented as, we don't have an iconic entrance. When people show up here, they don't know where the entrance is. So those are things, again, that were probably discussed in the master facility plan that I don't know.
So
Well,
the
they
new,
are listed here on the second page under the high school entrance, the things that you just talked about.
Yeah, we try to pull out from that topic, the things that were highlights of the effort there. And it did, as Mark said, it included some administrative reworking and making more functional the front office area, concessions, just some space at the east lobby. So there was a combination of things that played into that. I think for the sake of, when E.O. Sullivan bundles this, they try to keep it at a fairly high level to get that reaction from the community and the committee. Doesn't always get in the weeds. Like now you're talking about a little more detail to what's involved.
and if I read that without any education, I would think it's the turn in off of Kesslinger, not necessary. So when E.O. Sullivan did this ranking, does anyone know or remember how much, they didn't just say high school entrance, there had to be something more, I'm assuming that was?
Well, they bundled it. I was looking for the boards. They had an advantages and a disadvantage and then a cost to each of the menu items. I don't remember exactly how they portrayed the advantages, but that information, we could bring it back and you could see this is how it was captured at that level, which is not the detail you're looking at on this sheet.
Okay. I'll support whatever you guys come up with the 70 or under. I'm just trying to help ask questions to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look from the perspective of I don't want to say uneducated voter, but a voter who hasn't been involved in this entire process, and they see new high school entrance. And even when I was in meetings, I literally, until you guys said that, and we looked at the detail, and even in the detail, it says that you know, that we're going to improve functionality and consolidate high school administrative spaces. It doesn't, I don't know. When I hear it from you, I can understand the need a little more. Yeah, my 2 cents. I speak too much sometimes.
And I had forgot the same thing throughout this process, and then when we met on it the last couple of weeks, it kind of came back around and refreshed my memory.
And I guess that's what I've been struggling too, because without the context behind this, I'm still seeing bullet point 2, a signature entrance. But like you're saying, I know what that looks like. I've been in that area. So if you're redesigning that whole, that part, that's huge. That's a need, and so if anybody has been in the high school, they would recognize that. And so I think some of the context behind some of these bullet points are missing. And so I appreciate you bringing that up.
And that you can go a whole nother level deeper, and in the master plan report, it got into some context too. That's it really kind of capture the conversations that we're having at that level. So if you need more context, that would probably help a little bit, is just sharing how we got there.
I just appreciate too, us being able to ask these questions too, because we want to say, administration, we trust your leadership. And, when you come up with these options, that context behind it. Way more than what we know here, even the board members that have been a part of the other committees. There's more, you're dealing with the staff, you're dealing with the students and stuff like that. We do that too. But it's just like I said, some of the things is for us to grasp when we are getting emails, we have community members coming to us, we're not in your brain, so we don't necessarily know all the context behind everything. So I appreciate you guys giving us the freedom to ask these questions. I know that didn't help either. I talked too much too.
We're talking about $70 million. We should talk a lot.
But thank you for that comment. But and Mr. Gonzalez too. But that's what tonight was designed for, to ask those questions and to work through some of these details.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to clarify that I will have a very hard time supporting any option that includes the Fox Valley Career Center because of the unique way it's funded and what I see as an unfair distribution of the costs among those districts. I don't know if other people, if a majority of the board feels that way, if you want to know that.
So what does that look like if we don't do Fox Valley Career Center and it stays at Meredith and it stays in the section? Because there's pieces at Meredith and there's pieces at the high school. So if we're redesigning all that other stuff, what does that look like?
I would architecturally, Dan, do you have
Yeah.
an idea
Well,
of what that looks like? Because it looks like there might be a couple pieces, even with the second question, some pieces that wouldn't be included in the second question either.
Sorry, can I ask one more too? How does that affect Ignite? Because were you guys anticipating for them to be gone out of that building for Ignite to expand?
Ignite can work either way,
Okay.
whether Fox Valley stays there in part or if they move all together, there's room for both.
So Ignite would be fine now, but as it expands and grows, would they need that space? I guess I'm looking more long-term too, not just like opening Ignite in the next year. So Ignite is a part of Kaneland,
Yes.
and so I want to make sure we're doing that right. I know there's a lot of discrepancy in the community about Ignite. We need to do education on that. That's not what I'm talking about. It's more, if we don't do Fox Valley Career Center, they are sharing that space. At some point, is that going to hinder Ignite from expanding and growing? And if we would just do Fox Valley Career Center now and move them over, is that supporting and helping a Kaneland program?
Dr. Fuchs, I saw you shaking your
Yep,
head.
I'm agreeing with Mr. Raleigh as well. Ignite can grow up to the 500 student mark without Fox Valley needing to be relocated.
Okay.
Of course, if they had the entire building, they would find ways in which to use it. So kind of the build it and they will come.
Right.
But can they survive without it? The answer is yes.
Sorry.
Just to go back to answer, if the things at Fox Valley Career Center would pretty much stay as is, with the exception, I believe, the wood shop would have to move and relocate. So we'd have to build something to house the wood shop to allow the special ed RTI space to fully be realized per the master plan.
And at one point you had estimated about 5 million for that to take place.
So Teresa, you bring up a good point. We're almost looking at a three-faceted option here, right? Because, so it's like, okay, so first of all, we're looking at, are we willing to support the two questions? So we have a consensus of that. But then, one of those two questions is limiting, because I tend to support that notion, in that I don't know that I'm willing to let our taxpayers fund the Fox Valley Career Center to the extent we're going to ask them to fund it.
It's 15 million.
So
And
it's
it's plus 10%.
Yeah, that unfortunately is subject to the semester.
Right, so on that note, I mean, this might be a topic for future, whatever, but, and a simple question is, can we charge them more to recoup our money?
We can and we have, in the past, when we've done building projects, specifically the roof over the area that they occupy, we have increased their fees and we spread it out over 10 years.
Do we increase
Our
everybody's fees?
Yes.
Or just the people that are coming to?
The way that we did it before, we increased everybody's fees, but we'd need to talk to their board and see if that's a possibility. One thing I guess to remember is that the Kaneland kids occupy or house enroll over half of the Fox Valley Career Center. So the Kaneland students will benefit most greatly from improvements to Fox Valley.
50-50.
50-50, but more than. Do you know what the breakdown is?
I know it's always been a right around half.
Yeah, so.
I may be naive in asking this, but even if we increase the fees, how does that put money back into the taxpayers' pockets who are funding this initiative?
It does not.
That's where I struggle.
Yeah, it doesn't. The only way that we could do that is if we didn't sell bonds and start charging excess fees now and collecting the money and then using that money, but it will never be that much.
Couldn't charge enough to offset that.
Exactly, you
that people
cannot.
would be willing to accept to stay.
Right, I would agree with that.
Which is also to say we would never be able to recoup what the taxpayers
Correct.
have put out. If it can never get to the 15 million, or if it would take forever to get there, we wouldn't recoup that.
Well, I guess if
And
you're looking at
quite
half, it'd be
honestly, I don't want to
half.
price out Fox Valley out of business. We've already got one school district going to a different place because of their cost being less than ours.
Which is the same with Mid-Valley too. Districts regularly look at, can they bring back any of the programs to their own district for less money? So there are districts that will regularly do that. That ebbs and flows. Then they realize they come back and they don't have room for it, so it goes back to Fox Valley or to Mid-Valley. So that's kind of a ongoing challenge that kind of ebbs and flows.
So,
Definitely.
and that brings up the question.
Yeah.
For 16.5 million, what could we bring in-house? You know, could we have dedicated Kaneland High School classes, you know, instead of the Fox Valley Career Center? You know, could we get more than what is offered there if we just, you know, I mean, it's kind of a theoretical exercise, but I would hate to spend the money for less than what we could get for it if we just used it on in-house.
Again, I just want to tread lightly. We asked D.O. Sullivan, a lot of you guys have made that comment. We want to respect their data. And so we're going to say no to something that was ranked higher, and we're going to say yes to two things that were ranked way below. And so as a board, we need to, I don't know, I don't even know how to figure that part out of the community's voice. We heard it, and now we're kind of picking and
I'm
choosing.
also not in favor of those two lower
Okay.
items.
So I guess that's my,
Oh,
my,
two
yeah.
lower items.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I also would agree with the other sentiments that, I mean, we have trouble understanding how that's funded. I really doubt that was explained when we pitched it to the community. So for them to say, yeah, we'll pay for it, in theory, great, but without understanding that they're paying for people not in our district.
I guess it would, that's a hard one, because if people, whatever they were told, Fox Valley Career Center, they would have been told something. And if they felt it was important enough for this district, they said yes to it. I mean, to the point of it was more than a field house for them. I mean, they're looking at it as a number 4. It's not even like it's number 6 or 7 or something, like it came after a field house. So for us to not respect their voice, I think they are smart enough. I mean, we come from a generation of parents and adults that know about career training. Not all kids go to college. There are training schools and
Yes,
stuff like
they know
that.
about
So I
career
think,
training.
so the fact that we're saying this community who was asked, I think they do. I think they understand what Fox Valley Career Center is, and I think they understand what the funding goes behind it and stuff like that. I know we're struggling with it because we don't necessarily, but we're going to disregard people that have said, yeah, I want to support that. I want to get behind that.
I'm
I
confused.
think I am supportive of Fox Valley Career Center's mission.
Right.
No, I
And
meant the
what they
building
do.
of it. Like they're saying,
But you're saying, of course, we're struggling with understanding the funding, but everybody else is smart enough to understand.
no, not that. I mean that they're saying they trust administration saying, hey, obviously this is on the table, so this is important enough. So they're, whatever the funding is, I think we're putting too much into it. They were saying, hey, athletics, schools, and career training is important to the community. And
Right,
so
if
they're
we're gonna
saying,
hold with that, then we're not going above 70, we're not offering a field house.
yeah.
Say that again for me, just so I.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going with that argument, this is what the community wanted. The community said not above 70, we are not offering a field house. We're not jeopardizing everything else so that they can possibly have a question B to do a field house. I will take that.
I also don't know that people, I think when they heard Fox Valley Career Center, they thought of all the great things that happened there. I don't think they heard you will be taxed first, and then our students will also have to pay the same tuition as everybody else, and we won't ever recoup the money from the other districts.
I don't think they're that sophisticated. They knew they were going to be taxed for it, and they said, okay, tax me for it.
There's a big.
Tax me twice for it.
They,
There's a big push right now, or at least my perception is, there's a big push right now towards the vocational schools because A, college is expensive, B, you can get into a trade and make really good money. A lot of the people I've spoken to, they're like, yes, Fox Valley Career Center, we need to send more kids, we need these people to come out of it. Do they understand what all is involved with the Fox Valley Career Center and who else is utilizing it and what we're paying for as Kaneland District residents? That's where I think the fallacy in the data was. I think that, yes, it all sound, of course, we're going to support this vocational program, but if it's for Kaneland students only, yes, my tax dollars should go to that. If it's for other districts, those other districts should help support it. And I think wasn't communicated, at least in my survey, it wasn't communicated clearly.
No, I think those that attended the engagement meetings, the questions were asked there. But again, those were groups of 20, 30, and 40. So it was a small subset. On the phone survey, that wouldn't have been, there wasn't the application in which to learn that process. So those that would know about the dynamics of the cost structure for the Career Center would have only been able to be asked at one of the in-person meetings. And that was a smaller amount for sure.
It was brought up in the second one I attended. I know that it was discussed and it was brought to my attention. I didn't even consider it until it was brought to my attention.
So now I'm gonna maybe show my ignorance, but so what is the concern here that, okay, so as a parent who had a child go through Fox Valley, yes, I'm being taxed to improve it, but I'm also paying a fee for my kid to go there? I would be fine with that because this is different. Other schools are paying to be a part of that. Their kids aren't just coming here for free. They're paying for it too. So it's kind of like I look at athletic fields too. If I didn't have a kid that was in sports, it was ranked number 5. Parents are still willing to, grandparents are saying, or whoever was, surveyed, thank you, said yes to it, and there's like, you made the comment, you're like, your daughter may never do athletics, but you're willing to pay for it because you feel in overall Kaneland community, this is important. Like career center is important. The field house is important. It might not be important to absolutely every child, but like to me, yeah. I mean, so what are we questioning? Just because as a taxpayer for Kaneland, I'm helping to improve Fox Valley Career Center, just like I'm willing to improve the athletic fields. But if my kid doesn't use it, I mean, athletic fields, I still had to pay a fee for my kid to play soccer. So I'm paying for the fields to be improved, but then I'm also paying for her to play soccer, so we can get into those details too with some of these other things. So I guess I'm confused a little bit. What are we so worried about?
I don't question the value. I question the funding source. I don't question the value at all. I just think that there are other opportunities to fund this program.
So
And the equity of how the burden is borne by Kaneland District as opposed to the other member districts, where most of the burden appears, for good reason, on the backs of Kaneland taxpayers as opposed to the taxpayers of all member districts.
all right, so if I'm an unsophisticated, I'm just Joe Schmo homeowner, I own a house in Elburn, and I say, I already know I pay X amount of dollars for taxes for a school. It's the biggest part of my tax bill. And then, so I already know I'm spending that money. I know that Fox Valley exists. It's all one lump sum to me. I don't differentiate where the money or the funding comes from. I pay my taxes, we have Career Center. The voters or the people that were surveyed said, I already pay my taxes. I'm willing to spend $15 million for the Career Center. They don't, so I disagree with the idea that we should pull that out separately. I understand your logic of that we're paying more for it. I get that. But the voters,
If
they
they
knew.
had known that, do you think they would have
I mean,
said,
I could get
"Go ahead
behind
and do
this if we're willing to actually stick with, we're going with what they said they wanted. And we're doing that all the way through.
Which takes you to a one question ballot of 70 million or less.
Correct.
And I see your point. I still.
So I will say, we've gone beyond the one question only. I think we've found that there's a consensus of sorts to have a two questions on the ballot. It's the makeup of the first one. So I guess, I'm struggling here with whether or not we need to give consensus on which things to not include.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we should do them one at a time or all together, or if we're going to end up with 3 different things. It's getting a little weedy.
I'll make a suggestion, and here's what I propose that we do for option 1. Go down the list.
But I don't want to tell them what the options are.
No. Let me finish.
Okay.
All right, go down the list until you hit 70 million, and that's the option 1, excluding the field house because it kicks us over. So
You're saying in order of priority, basically?
yeah, in order of priority off the page as it's written.
Is that also
And when you hit, okay, so here's the
No,
question.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I just couldn't hear you.
Does that include taking out collaborative then, because it's tied to the field house?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you get to the field house, you're not nearly at 70 million. Then do you skip over those 2 and pick the other 2 up?
Yes.
Or not?
Yes. That's what I would suggest we do.
Pick up Ignite and you pick up the entrance.
Yes. That's what I'm suggesting.
I want to hear the rest of your.
Which is option 1 then.
That's option
That's
1.
option 1. That is what Meg is in favor of, from what I understand, not to put words in your mouth, but we do up to 7, skip the field house, skip the other thing in order of ranked order of importance by the survey. And that would be what option 1 entails for our discussion next meeting.
Okay.
Option B would be whether the 2-part question and takes us to the 130, 20, whatever the second amount. Does that encompass everybody's desires or not?
I think it does, except for the Fox Valley Career Center.
Well,
I mean, it's a fundamental issue for those of us who don't like it. I realize you're not one of us,
No,
but for
so-
those of you.
I am trying to.
If we did a straw poll right now, like I could get behind that and
Okay.
take my foot off of the Fox Valley Career Center.
Okay.
So then it begs, are you the only one still holding out, or are you still holding out too? And I don't know why.
I
you're
believe Bob was also leading that direction, although I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Yeah.
So are we saying option one, the option you just proposed, which includes the Fox Valley Career Center? We're saying our two options are that, or that plus the second question.
Yeah, 70 and 120 is what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting we.
So then we are already saying what it's going to be because we know it's going to be two questions.
I guess my logic between option one at 70 million is that we're following the survey. You know, they said spend 70 million. Here's the ranked order. We can't do the field house. It doesn't fit the budget. So we pick up. We get to the 70. We're pretty much doing what survey results said we should. Option B is me, what is me or wants, and we're going, yeah. So does that satisfy what you want, or am I off base?
That'd be good.
Honestly, I'm struggling because I don't know as.
I don't think the taxpayers.
I mean, if we reduced option one by 15 million, more lucrative on the ballot. I mean, and then we could get our needs fixed, and we reduce it.
Oh, meaning more likely to pass?
Yeah.
If we reduced it by.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like my role as a board member is to look out for the taxpayers, and I don't feel that supporting this 15 million. Again, with all due respect, I have.
No, I know that. I'm just, to your point too, is the other two things, so then we should cut out the other 8 million. The last two things that were negative numbers in the data.
Lower ranked.
Yeah, I really struggle, Fox Valley or whatever. I don't care if it was the modernized classrooms. If that would have ranked at number 4, I mean, so you guys, my push is listen to the community. The community said not the lowest amount, they said the middle amount, so which is at 70. They said these rankings. We are trying to put ourselves into their brains to anticipate what did they hear, what was their perspective, and instead of just trusting the numbers, which is kind of what we've been pushing to.
So then why take out those last two? I don't think.
Well, if we're taking out Fox Valley, which ranked at 4, and then.
No, I'm saying if you're, I'm.
No, so then the
beyond
last
that.
two, your, whatever was number 9 and 10, sorry, I don't have my thing out anymore.
Right, the entrance and the.
Yeah,
night.
they were what negative percentage, like the community said, no. We're, they, whatever that looks like. I don't have the numbers. I wish I did.
Percentage is negative. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. So that's my point is.
I mean, if they were lower.
They weren't just lower,
They
they
were
were
negative.
drastically lower. I mean, they
Yeah,
were.
they were.
So either we're listening to the community or we're not. And I have a hard time too going to the ballot box and somebody's going to look at that. Oh, well, I'm not voting for that either because I asked for this and you guys ignored me.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have a really hard time if we say we're gonna listen to the voters, but we're gonna put a second option on there that makes it less likely to pass so that we can not listen to the voters, ask for more than 70 to get a field house.
I guess that's why I'm in the vote for both 70 and 120. And a heck of a lot of education of going, hey, the 70 is what your voice is.
Say that
Yeah.
we just need to educate the voters. The execution of that is ridiculously hard.
And it is not gonna be us. Most likely. I mean, we're not gonna be doing it at a board meeting.
True.
I mean, we're
Yeah.
gonna be moving on with our business. We're gonna leave it all to a committee.
Yeah, that's why I said
It needs to raise tens of thousands of dollars.
And like Meg, yeah, I'm in agreement of the 70 million is listening to our community's voice. That's why we got E.O. Sullivan. That's why as a board, we were like, we got to do this because we need to know what the community is saying. Now the field house, but we also have a lot of community members pushing, going, I want field house, I want field house. So it really falls on them now. The community says they want the 70 million. This is their ranking. This is what we do. If that group of that wants that field house, then they're the ones that have to go out there and push for that.
Do the heavy lifting.
They have to do the heavy lifting.
You're doing like the cake and eat it too thing though. I mean,
What do you
We're
mean?
not listening. We're advocating for putting a second question on there, which we know is statistically likely to make it fail when they've told us we don't want to go over 70. But we're going to ask again.
I'd be curious to know what those statistics are.
Yeah.
I mean, they say that they don't, but
So again, though, you're playing both sides. You're saying we're going to listen to the community, except that you want to go over 70 for a field house, so you're not going to listen to the community.
Well, I mean, we're
giving them
getting,
we're giving them the option that
Yeah.
they asked for, and we're saying, okay, if there's really that much support,
No,
so we're saying
you
you
didn't
can.
ask for that option. People you have talked to asked for that option. The
Mm-hmm.
people that we surveyed, that we paid to do the work, said not over 70. And we are
Across the
saying
entire
we're
district.
listening, but we're not.
I don't see how we're ignoring them by offering the option, and then also saying, well, if you guys want it, if there's enough people that weren't able to participate in the survey, or didn't understand it, or didn't follow through, but still want a field house. I don't see what's lost. We're still respecting the data.
What's
We're
lost
respecting
is
the community.
them saying, never mind, I'm not gonna help you at all. And we are back to nothing.
I think those same people are going to.
Well, the majority of people that go into the voting booth are not gonna have heard any of this discussion. They're not gonna know any of it. They're gonna walk in and they're gonna see two questions, 70 million and 122, and they're gonna
say no.
vote their pocketbook.
I think we've already reached a consensus on whether we do 1 or 2 questions. It's just a matter of what. I think wasn't it a
We
5?
have,
So it's just a matter of what the 7 or the lower number includes is.
I mean, I don't wanna put my own, I don't wanna put my own opinion on it. I think the Fox Valley Career Center, because of the way it's funded, is a fundamentally different situation than just taking the rankings. And I would like to know if other board members feel that way and if we have a consensus to remove it because of the funding difference.
I would say no, I don't support that idea. I know, but
No,
you asked
Jennifer
for.
doesn't. I do not support that either.
I support it. I agree.
I support it if we're doing 2 questions.
I'm inclined to support it.
And I support it.
So,
Okay.
there you go.
So we know we're doing 2 questions. We have, Dr. Lawler. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Where do you land on the Fox Valley Career Center question? I think we have
Yeah.
we
I
have
think,
4, but
You have 4 to keep it, right?
no. We have 4 that don't want it on there because of the way that it's funded.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually am in favor of leaving it only because of it being ranked number 4 on the list. It doesn't matter, my vote is losing anyway.
Okay. I just forgot and I wanted to make sure you were heard.
No, you're good. You're good. I don't know if this is a topic for new agenda, so maybe this is later in the meeting, but I would like to address the funding structure of that though at some point. So discuss it more and more about it, that kind of thing.
Okay. So now we know we have a consensus to have 2 questions on the ballot. We have a consensus to not include the Fox Valley Career Center.
I guess
And is that enough direction for you to then bring back?
Is the Fox Valley Career Center in neither? Because as board member Carey had mentioned, 70 and 122, those numbers now change. Because we said before 122 includes everything, so is it not in option 1, but or not in question 1, but in question 2? I just want to, I know that kind of muddies the water, and a new straw poll may be needed, but I just want to make sure I'm hearing the right thing.
Can I ask a question? The original facilities committee and all that stuff, Fox Valley was on the list.
We own the building, so it's part of the upgrades.
Right. So are we missing, again, we've had this conversation too. I'm just throwing this out of, hey, we've talked about, well, let's not overlook the cafeteria because it's wasted space. But I mean, so there was things in that page. You guys made a list for a reason. So if we are we ignoring your wishes too?
It is straying from the master facility planning structure. But also, I guess that's what this process allows this board to make some of that determination. So but also the master facility planning group put together a 106,000 square foot field house, and if we change that to 80, it seems like also that we're willing to adjust some things, but not other things too. So that's what makes this conversation complex, because which of the topics are worth shifting and which are not, and why?
And are we the right people to make those decisions?
We are.
So,
That's why we're here.
so I think, you know,
I guess I meant more like if we're saying a field house can go from 106 down to 80 or whatever, you are strategically looking and saying, I'm going to take the front entrance out and make it smaller or make it different. We're not having that conversation for Fox Valley Career Center. And so for some reason, that was a part of one of your things that was important to you guys. So I know it falls on us. We need to make that decision, option one, option two, whatever we do. But there's a reason, like we said, we've talked over and over again. There was a list that you guys had given the committee. They've worked on that. They've come up with this, are we losing something?
I'm not trying to shut you down, but when I lost 2 questions, like
Right.
that was the end. We voted.
I was just about to say, that we've decided that the Fox Valley Career Center is out.
Okay.
By a 4-3.
Well, no, we're talking about now the 120.
Oh,
If
out
we
of
go-
out of the whole thing. We do need to know that, but we don't need to rehash like.
No, and I'm not
My
rehashing.
point was on the 120.
Yeah.
That was my question.
I'm just clarifying for the 120 because the 120 does incorporate everything you guys originally asked.
All right, so I'm in favor of including it on the 120.
I have a fundamental problem with it, but if everybody else goes that way, I will, you can put it all on there. You can put it on there because
I'm in favor of.
But I
keeping
have
it.
a fundamental problem with it, so. Others?
You have a fundamental problem with the 120.
Yeah.
Can I abstain?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a
That would be
fundamental-
logical.
I have a fundamental problem with the way the burden is currently allocated on Kaneland taxpayers for the Fox Valley. However, if they're going for 120, if we're going for 120, it probably should be on there.
I'm gonna stick with my guns. I think it takes our 120 down to 105, and so it's more likely to get passed. And not to be repetitive, but I fundamentally don't believe in
where do we land?
Kaneland taxpayers.
And Meg, you're abstaining from this part of the discussion?
No, take it off.
Okay, so now we're at 3-3. So Dr. Lawler,
Whoops, sorry.
are you in favor of keeping the
sorry.
Fox Valley Career Center on the 120 million proposal? We have 3 that fundamentally oppose the way that it's funded and don't want it on there. We have 3 that want it included because it's as a whole package.
Yeah, I'm torn on this because I pretty much have already decided I'm not gonna vote for a $120 million thing, right? But, I guess that's the second question, right? So if we're going 2 questions, the second question is, it's $122 million and it's gonna list out, and it'll include the box. That's the second question.
Yes, the first question, we've already decided it's out.
No, I know that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's what I'm double checking after.
Yeah.
I can hear you and Ryan and Meg, but I can't hear anybody else.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. That's okay. I'm fine with leaving it on.
Okay. Got that?
Yes.
Okay, so we know 2 questions. We know 70 million does not include Fox Valley Career Center. And then we know that the 120 million includes everything. All right.
Good.
Burning questions, additional burning questions from board members that we need to include in this discussion.
Just the tax effect.
I've got that to bring back. Yep. The other thing I guess I just want to clarify is that with the price escalation on the field house, the 122.3 million probably will be higher, or you will need to make it smaller, one or the other.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
If we're sticking with the master plan verbatim and we just match what was in there, then that number will go up. If it doesn't, if we try to streamline a little bit, then we could probably bring that number down.
So we'll probably show you those numbers next time.
Updated side by side.
Mhm.
We stay with 106,000 if we go to
Yep.
84,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Square feet.
Fine.
Okay. Everybody at least feel heard? All right.
Kaneland course book.
Dr. Lawler, are you going to continue on
Good
the
night.
next J3
night,
item, or
thank
are
you.
you needing to go?
Good night, Lindsay.
I can stay.
Okay. All right. I know that was hard work, but thank you to everyone. At least we got through it.
Yeah, I think we did good.
We failed math.
Hashtag. So now we're on item J3, which is the discussion and approval of Kaneland High School course book on first reading.
Yes, thank you. As President Witt said, it is on first reading, so if there are no questions, any alterations or changes need to be brought back by Mr. Raleigh, it will come back at the next meeting on the consent. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Raleigh, and you can walk us through the presentation.
So we are looking at updates to the Kaneland High School course book for student selection for classes for the 23-24 school year. So for next year, this process typically starts around the November, December time. There's been a committee that have been looking at current courses that have been offered. Today, we are going to talk about 3 of them. 2 of them are predominantly driven by changes in requirements from the state of Illinois. And one has looked at a course that has run in the past, but does have some updated curriculum. So trying to bring that back to see if there's updated interest in it. But if you could go to the next slide. The first that we will start with is just a proposed name change. We currently offer a cooperative class and a cooperative on the job. Those are paired together. It is offered to our juniors and seniors. There is a requirement through the state that is associated with working outside of Kaneland. Yes, sir.
Cooperative doesn't mean Fox Valley Career Center. It means something else, correct?
Correct. It is a cooperative in the sense that the class is really going through, it's a focus on personal finance, but then those students contingent on that class is a workplace experience where they have at least 15 hours or more with an independent employer outside of Kaneland. So it is not a Fox Valley Career Center course. And then there's that. The cooperative on the job is that workplace experience. We do have a Kaneland staff member that is a liaison for all of those students with their employers outside of Kaneland. The name change, and it is to remain compliant with the Post-Secondary Workforce Readiness Act, would be to change the co-op class to a workplace experience and a workplace on the job. So it is strictly just tweaking that name. There is no change to the curriculum. There's no change to any of the requirements for the course. There is that one requirement that they do have to be 16 because there's the work component. But other than that, the experience for the kid remains the same. This class, we adopted this 2 years ago. There was a little bit coming onto the books the first year. We only had, I think, 2 or 3 kids that were enrolled. And I want to say it's upwards of 17 this year. So there has been an increase in interest in that, an increase with the our communications, our community partnerships. So we're seeing larger numbers of students that are benefiting from this class. I'm going to go through there's only 3, so I'm going to go through all of them. Stop me at any time, please, for questions, and then we'll have a time at the end for any general questions. If you could go to the next slide. We're proposing 2 courses. One of them, in talking with the department chair from the Career and Technical Education Department at Kaneland, it's a little bit blended of a name change, but we did decide to call it a new course proposal because some of the curriculum has changed. And then the other one is an entirely new course. So we'll walk through those. So if you go to the next slide, please. Looking at the first course, both of those are in the Department of CTE here at Kaneland. And what we would do for this first one is the course would be called in our Kaneland books as Agricultural Finance. Currently, the students experience and take typically an Agricultural Business 1 for a semester, and then that extends into an Agricultural Business 2 for a semester. Working with the curriculum for agricultural science education, what that has done, and they work with a Natural Ag Education Association. They took the curriculum and the standards for both of those Business 1 and Business 2 courses, and they streamlined those, and they wrote a more focused and concise curriculum that really focuses on agricultural commodities, agricultural trade, and that then incorporates the personal finance graduation requirement, but it's done so through the lens of agriculture. So students can take an agricultural finance class. They will meet all of the state requirements for personal finance, so they don't double up on those, but it's done so through the lens of the agricultural sciences. So based on what CASE has done and streamlined and has written more focused curriculum, we would replace Ag Business 1 and Ag Business 2 with agricultural finance to meet those standards for that course. Yes.
All right, so Ag Business 1 and 2, that's a semester each, I'm assuming?
Yes.
So it's going to be streamlined and cut down to one semester and pick up personal finance. That's
correct.
I guess I'm concerned that the personal finance course is getting shortchanged, that component of it. But I don't know the course book well enough to, so can you maybe give me the 2-sentence synopsis of each of what the personal finance course is versus the agricultural, whatever you're calling this one?
Agricultural finance. Yep. So personal finance looks at financial management, personal financial management. It talks about the effects of banking accounts, interest rates, payday loans, and dangers that are associated with what people could be doing financially outside of high school. Those same components are covered, but they're done through an agricultural lens. So when I'm talking about my own financial savings accounts, my own financial plans, it's done so through typical agricultural discussion. So the standards are overarching, are covering the same types of things, but it's instructed and done through the effects that agricultural has on those. So it's not just general examples of what students might experience. It is done through the typical experience of someone that is heavily involved in the agricultural sciences. So it's a little bit more focused on the ag side of it,
So
rather
more of a
than
business side of it.
global. Correct. And what typically what would happen for, no, never mind. It talks a little bit about the business side, but it talks about the impacts of banking, finance, trading, those types of things that the personal finance still covers. And they've.
Go ahead.
I was just curious, does it discuss economics? So supply and demand of commodities like corn?
Yep, commodity trading, all of those pieces,
Bacon.
yes.
That was a curiosity question, forgive me.
I'm fine with what this course, I'm just concerned that they might miss a part of the personal side.
It has, so those are state requirements for that personal finance, and these standards, as they have been focused, do cover and meet the state requirements for the personal finance side of that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is the motivation to have the personal finance through the agricultural lens, is that because, I guess I just theoretically would like to know, is it because like the family farm is usually part of the personal and also it's the business?
It could be,
Or
but
is it,
I don't have
otherwise I'm not sure why.
drilled down that specific into what that those day-to-day lessons might be.
Oh, okay. I just wonder why ag and not everything, not other.
Right, so do we just have a lot of students who are not gonna go beyond high school and they're gonna do family farm stuff, or they're going to both? Like, is that just a common?
And like, do you cover credit cards in both of them? Because that's, I just don't want to miss.
And how to write a check.
Yeah, how to write a balance checkbook, how to get a loan, what interest rates. I mean, I'm fine with any new class. It's just, I'm afraid that this new class doesn't cover what that other class I feel is important. And I know my feelings don't matter, but.
But I guess there's state requirements, and you said
There are state requirements that meet those. So if hypothetically, if how to function with use a credit card is covered in our traditional personal finance class, it may be through a company credit card, but the state requirements of what we have to meet are the same in both the agricultural finance and the personal finance class. How the vehicle in which they're delivered are probably a little bit different.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the third class is truly in looking at new curriculum. So the class would be entrepreneurship and small business management. This does fall under the scope of, it would be a next step after a business one class, and I can talk about what some of those other options may be. A little bit of the history on this class. It hasn't been offered in the sense that it will be with a focus on entrepreneurship. It has run in the past previously until 2017 when it was no longer offered. The previous class of entrepreneurship was offered every other year with some of the other business classes that coincided with it. And after 2017, as you can see, it was replaced by virtual enterprise. And virtual enterprise, anecdotally, it was a year-long course. It was offered typically to juniors and seniors who had some other options of semester-long courses. And working with our building administration, trying to pinpoint why it may not have run, but virtual enterprise did not run. It was a year-long as opposed to several semester options. So we think that's what caused some of that low enrollment. Regardless, there was low enrollment, so it did not run. What we have done for this course is taking a look at updated standards with a focus on entrepreneurship, business trends, business organizations. I think over the last 5 years since entrepreneurship was last offered, we've seen an increase in the interest behind personal businesses, entrepreneurship opportunities. So with that, coupled with updated curriculum with the entrepreneur financial side, decided that there would likely be enough interest to offer this course. So that would be a new one introduced to our course books. How this kind of flows with a business, if we're selecting classes through a business lens, students would learn the foundational understanding of business through Business One, and then they have a couple other different options. They can go into the AP Microeconomics, they can go to Business 2. This is where our sports, entertainment, and marketing and accounting courses fall. This would be in addition to some of those options as well to look into the entrepreneurial side as opposed to the accounting or the marketing side. I will mention along with these do not require additional FTE or added an additional teacher. And the materials that we would need, the training for our teachers, should these courses be approved, are covered by a CTE grant that our CTE coordinator writes and coordinates and gets each year. So there would be no additional out-of-pocket expenses on the district or hiring additional teachers for any of these courses.
Mr. Ellie, I know that part of the conversation when committees look at new classes, will there be any impact on any other classes if these are enacted and put into the course book? Like, is there anticipation on another class will go down, or will this help another class increase because of the sequencing of it?
Obviously, our ag business classes would go by the wayside, but those components would be absorbed, so that would not be impacted. You may see some students that with their counselors are reflecting and thinking, are they wanting to go more towards an economic side or an accounting side? But I don't think any of these would offer such an adjustment where we're seeing class loads of 20 or 30 students that we're taking one that no longer has that enrollment and is not offered. So I think you might see small numbers that have an additional option for them. So you might see them in this course versus the marketing class, but I don't think this would cause such a shift where another course is not running due to this course being added.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education approves the 2023-24 Kaneland High School course book on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky,
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons. Aye. Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Mrs. Junk.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Relic.
Thank you. We are now at superintendent and board report.
Yes, I have two really brief updates. This Friday morning, 14th, we have our annual municipal leader meeting scheduled. We invite all the municipal leaders from our municipalities that feed into the Kaneland School District. And we typically have 4 or 5 attend, and we share updates that is going on with Kaneland, curriculum, finances, enrollment, those types of things. And then they also share important information, new housing starts, possible new housing complexes, restaurants, businesses, all of those things. And I would typically provide an update to the Board of Education in the weekly update with that information. And then secondly, next week on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock in the district office, we have our the first of our semi-annual FPC meetings, and that invite, the save the date is already going out. The invite for the actual agenda will go back out again. And I'll be sure that board members get that in case you see the agenda and you'd like to attend. Again, it's on the 19th, Wednesday from 7 to 8:30 in the district office. Those are the two updates that I had.
I also have 2 updates for tonight. The Kaneland Foundation met last night and they added 1 new member, and they have 1 more board member to add at the next meeting. They just concluded in September their golf outing, and it raised netted over $20,000, which was one of the highest profits ever. So they're very excited about that. They are doing 1 new fundraiser this winter, a holiday raffle for an Xbox. Tickets will be $20, and things are progressing very well with the help of Becky Greenlee, who is our executive director. The second report is on FAC, that's the Finance Advisory Committee. We will be meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in the district office, and I sent the agendas out today. I had given all of the board members a heads up, a reminder on the date, and that they knew that the agenda was coming out closer to the time of the meeting.
That's it? Board members? Anyone?
Circulate your election petitions if you're running.
Yes, okay. Topics for future agendas. I think we heard one from Dr. Lawler, is that correct?
What was?
To discuss the
Yes.
possibilities of alternate funding for the Fox Valley Career Center, or
That's what I
how do you want to word that?
I was thinking more just how the funding structure works, and then how we would go about changing it or modifying it depending on needs, that kind of thing.
Can I include how we charge other districts more money?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how, if we wanted to do these big upgrades, how would we go about that in a collaborative way?
Okay. I believe we have, I hear 3 already, and I'm a 4th, so I,
Do we have a consensus?
everybody, I don't want to talk about that.
Thank you.
Others? Did you have one written down?
That was it. That was
Oh,
the-
okay, that was it, okay. Okay, second opportunity for public comment. You guys
Fran?
okay? There is none, and we do not have a closed session tonight, so at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are, oh.
Was that a?
Thank you. Okay, hey, Dr. Lawler, I'm gonna hang up because we're adjourned. Thank you for
Yes, sounds
taking the time.
Thank you all for humoring me.
Okay.
Anytime. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great,